child survivor of Gateway.
Okay.
Can I have you repeat that one more time?
Sure.
Or spell your name one more time?
Sure.
Thank you.
It's Charissa.
Awesome. Thank you.
How did you get involved with Gateway?
I started getting involved with Gateway. My mom has been very active in Gateway, and I finally got to the point where I was ready to start to tell my story, and one of the first times that I spoke was at the wine tasting.
So what is your story?
My story is I am a child survivor of domestic violence. My mom was married to my dad for 17 years. So the longest that me and my brother can remember, there's been violence in our home. And we just kind of, my mom left my dad when we were in high school, and that kind of started the road to recovery for us.
So what did she do to get her recovery going?
Yeah, a lot of it is, I wasn't involved in Gateway as a child. My mom, when she decided to reach out for help, she did it on her own, knowing that me and my brother were safe. Most of the violence was directed at my mom. So when she started that recovery, she was sitting in a hotel room, opened the phone book, and thank God found Gateway and started her counseling and, the in and out of the shelter, and they were always there for her no matter what. And Gateway's the reason she's still here.
Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah. I can expand by saying I don't think that she would be here, honestly. And I don't think that we might have seen something that, went farther than, her not being alive. And in these situations, she didn't want to leave us. She knew it wasn't the situation that she wanted to be in, but for me and my brother, that's the reason she stayed. And so she probably wouldn't be here.
Okay. What kind of child?
So, bear with me. Me and my brother, he's only 18 months younger than me, so we're very, very close. And thank God I had my brother, someone to talk to, because we didn't have anyone to talk to. Everything was a secret. I have friends now that are just finding out what me and my brother experienced as kids. Any name you could ever think of in the book, me and my brother knew by the age of 3. Sitting at the top of the stairs and just listening to my dad just yell at my mom, and there'd be numerous times where he would trap her in a closet where she couldn't get out. So me and my brother would just stand outside the closet and just wait to make sure that, I don't know what we were going to do at 3, 4, and into high school and middle school, but we felt that if we could at least get in between them, then maybe it could de-escalate the situation. I saw numerous, my dad's a big guy. He's 6'3", 250. It's just this little thing. And as much as you can try to pull a grown man off somebody, stand in between, whatever it was, there's times where I thought he was going to kill her. And the only thing that we could think to do was say, I'm going to call the police. If you don't get off of her, I'm going to call the police. And at least we had that kind of, it felt like leverage for us, and it felt like an outlet. And so that was our way of kind of having control of the situation and hope that it doesn't get any worse than what we're already witnessing.
What would you say to children who are seeing that in their home?
It's so hard. I know it's so hard. I wish I could tell you to talk to someone, but it's scary to talk to somebody because you're scared that you still love your dad. That's the thing. And you love your mom, and you just, if you have someone to talk to, I would say talk to somebody because they can't help you. It's not easy, and it's going to take a lot of time. You may think it's going to be an overnight thing, but it's not. Your mom may go in and out, and all I can say is just talk to somebody because you can't keep holding this in. I just wish I would have had someone to talk to and it felt like it was okay to do that. when we were growing up, it was kind of whatever happened in your house happened in your house. You didn't tell people. You just lived in fear. And there's that fear that if you tell somebody your dad's going to get taken away, your mom's going to get taken away, you're not going to have your family anymore. But sometimes, as sad as it is, you have to be that person that speaks up for your mom. And that's going to be the hardest thing that you'll do. And you just hope that it doesn't make it worse. And that someone can help you.
Right. So what being involved in your mom's life meant for your family, for her, for you?
Yeah. Gateway's involvement, oh my gosh, it's helped me heal. I didn't always think that I was ready to tell my story because I always felt like whatever happened in the past is in the past. Why bring all this stuff up to kind of dredge it up again? But it goes back to when you're a kid and keeping that stuff silent again. We can't be silent about this stuff. There's so many people out there that are experiencing the same things that we are. And how are we going to know if we don't talk? And so with Gateway, my mom, she is such a different person. I can't even explain it. She's so strong and so independent, and she didn't have that. She was never an independent person while she was with my dad. So it's giving her her voice. It's giving her her self-confidence to stand up for herself and start to heal. I mean, I know the counseling and the services that she got through Gateway, I mean, she's just not even close to the same person. It's amazing. And it's helped me be stronger in the sense of, you know, her teaching me, this is independence. This isn't what you're supposed to live with. This is not okay. You know, so then next generation with my boys, this is not okay. This is not what we do, you know. So it's just help try to close that circle of violence, to not be the next generation and pass that on to our kids. I mean, that's all we can do.
So there might be another way to say it, but how has watching what your mom went through shaped the relationships that you've been in as an adult?
Yeah, I mean, it's been completely, it's impacted me in the sense that I am way more vigilant and I stand up for myself, but also my kids will never know what it's like to go home and be scared. To be scared to leave their parents alone with the other parent, to go to bed and, you know, not know what the middle of the night's going to be like, what the morning's going to be like, to just be a kid, you know, and know that the one thing which I've spoke before is everyone wants something different for their generation. So with my kids, it's unconditional love. I want them to know I will be there no matter what. They can talk to me and they're in a safe environment. And so by my mom going through this experience and going through Gateway, it's helped us build stronger, better relationships with the people around us. And I have, with me being open about my story now, I have people come up to me all the time that are like, hey, I have a friend that's going through this. My mom, my sister, my daughter, you know, and now I have the resources to point them towards Gateway. And it's helped me kind of figure that out as an adult, you know?
Mm-hmm. I remember you didn't want to leave your mom. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. I mean, there was numerous times I didn't want to go to school and leave my mom or do sleepovers with, you know, not knowing if something was going to happen while I was gone. It's not like I could do anything, but I felt like I could. I felt like being there was somehow helping my mom and not letting something happen. I wouldn't do sleepovers. I mean, I had a best friend growing up that I still have to this day. And she would be like, okay, well, let's go do this. And I was like, well, you know, let me ask my dad. And so I would ask my dad like a week in advance just to make sure he had enough time. And then it would come close and he would forget that I asked him. So then I couldn't go. And so it would then turn into, this isn't even worth it. Like, I'm not going to be able to go do these things. And then as we got older and we got into high school, never did most of the stuff that you do in high school. Just kind of hung out at my house and made sure that, you know, because my brother was kind of the rebel, so I was kind of the person that tried to at least keep the peace in the house.
What else do you want being a child victim and Gateway?
I guess one of the things that I want people to know about being a child victim in Gateway would be it's a lifelong struggle. I mean, I, to this day, still suffer from depression. When I was growing up, I would have panic attacks. I would say use the resources that Gateway has. I mean, honestly, I would have loved to have some type of professional counseling once I got out of the situation, just to kind of figure out what all was happening and what was going on with me and why I was the way I was. Use their resources. They're here and they're doing something so amazing for the community that we can't get on a normal basis. So that's what I would say is just what they offer you, just take it because it will help you. And we need it. I mean, we grow up to be these adults that don't have the skills to cope, to try to find those normal relationships, and to tell our story, because we just keep this in for so long that it's a tipping point, and when it finally happens, it happens. And then you're just kind of don't know what to do. So to have those resources that they offer, I would say take it.
Excellent. You know you can get into counseling here.
I know.
Okay.
I do have a counselor. I was a little slow to the train, but
You caught it though. That's okay. That is okay. So what does, just, you know, when you think about Gateway, what is the first thing you think about? What does it mean to you?
safety, honestly, and hope. I think those are the two biggest things for me, that you don't have as a kid. You don't have either one of those. It seems hopeless because every day it's the same thing over and over again, and you're just like, I just want to break. I just want to be a kid, and I don't want to feel like this anymore. And then the hope that it can get better and you can have this life that it seems weird but normal, like a normal life. And even though you didn't get that as a kid, I'm now having that. And I'm cool with a normal life, like the routine of work, kids, I'm good with it. Because there's no, it's chaos. Every day it's chaos. And I'm good with no chaos.
Nice.
So those are the two things I would say.
What's your relationship like now with your dad?
My relationship with my dad is non-existent. I tried for a long time. Even when my mom left, it was me and my brother, because she finally was able to get out of the relationship, found her apartment, and we would split time between the two. And then at 16, my dad threw my brother out. And so, of course, his first call was to my mom. So then it was just me. And I felt I didn't want him to be alone. Like, after everything that had happened, I'm still feeling bad for him. And I'm like, why do I feel like this? Like, he's not a nice person. And so then it finally got to the point where, you know, one night he took it out on me. And so I was like, I'm done. And then I tried to have bits and pieces of relationships when I left for college. But he was the same person, still doing this to other women. And I couldn't do it anymore. And when I decided that, you know, I had kids, I don't want them around this. This is not, they don't need to know what this is like, that there's this other side to people. I just want them to be happy and be kids. So right now it has probably been, so my oldest is 8. It's been probably 9 or 10 years since I've talked to my dad. I've seen him one time, and we had a very superficial conversation because my brother, you know, my brother had gotten into an accident in California, so we all went out there. So I have seen him probably like 3 years ago. That was weird, kind of gut-wrenching. It's like you're almost right back in that place again. It's weird.
Yeah. Oh. How about your relationship with your mom?
My relationship with my mom. She's so amazing. She's my best friend. And we talk like 4 times a day about stupid things that are just, you know, just to say hey or whatever. But we're twins. We look a lot alike. We act a lot alike. She's just my best friend.
Yeah. Yeah. No, she's my best friend.
I know. She's such a
Fine.
great lady.
I know.
I know.
I know. She really is. I'm going to say something and just repeat it and then fill in the blank.
Okay.
Thank you, Gateway, for...
Thank you, Gateway, for saving my mom's life.
And thank you, donors, for...
Oh my gosh, thank you, donors, for everything that you do. You make Gateway possible to help people like my mom and me. So thank you.
Are there any last things you want to make sure we know?
No, Gateway. That's it. It's an amazing place. And it's the reason that I still get to call my mom my best friend. So,
Nice.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have something they want to ask?
You did wonderful.
thank you.
And the
so
outside
much.
ladies is we're meeting her mom this afternoon.
You're gonna get, she looks just like me, only better.
It's all you got. Go for it.
All right,
ahead.
so I'm Deborah Chen, C-H-E-N, and I'm the board president for Gateway.
Okay. Do you want us to say Deb or Deborah?
Deborah. As long as
You
it's
decide
right.
and spell it.
Oh, you want the first and last name? Sorry.
It's okay. It's all good.
Is it better to be more formal because I'm the
It
board
doesn't
president?
matter.
I mean, typically I'm not, but
Just be who you are.
Okay.
You're Deb.
all right.
D-E-B.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Gateway.
Yeah. So a friend of mine is a survivor. Sorry, I didn't start with the question.
Go ahead, start over. It's all good.
I got involved with Gateway because a friend of mine's a survivor, and she invited me to one of the fundraisers, and we really enjoyed the fundraiser and were very, very touched by the video that we saw and by the survivors' stories that we heard. Her niece was also on the board at the time, and she invited us to come and find out a little bit more about Gateway, find out about the board, and asked if we'd be interested in joining. We were very honored to be asked, and in all honesty, I've never seen an organization run this well, so we're very, very proud to be involved.
And when you're saying we, who are we talking?
Myself are both on the board. He is, he has his own consulting business, and he's very in tune with the organization, helping them with their systems and some of their marketing and their website. So he's truly been contributing, and that obviously is very helpful to the organization, makes us feel good. And I'm more on a personal level. I like to get involved with the people, I've gone through the volunteer training, love meeting the staff and attending the events and just hearing more and seeing how I can help out.
Excellent. Involved with Gateway.
I've been involved with Gateway since 2016 when I joined the board. I attended a fundraiser in 2015, but we got actively involved in the beginning of 2016.
What makes you want to continue being involved with Gateway?
I want to continue to be involved with this organization because of the amazing work they do in the community. The outreach of this organization is so wide, and the breadth of that outreach is so amazing. They are there for emergencies. They're there when the police bring these poor women and children and men in that have gone through some horrible, horrible things. They're there with them to hold their hand through the court advocacy program. They're there with counseling for themselves, for their children, for their pets. They have emergency shelters, so they have a place to stay. No one needs to be homeless, and they even help them find living. So they have an extended stay program to help them find homes. You know, it's soup to nuts. They have a 24-hour helpline. They have counselors always ready to help folks. You just can't get a better, leg up when you've been through something so horrific.
Fantastic. Being involvement to you personally?
Terrible with this.
No, you're absolutely not. You're very poised. Is that going to make you cry?
Yes.
Yes, it's okay. Emotion's good. I always cry in my interviews. So,
The reason I am honored to be involved with Gateway is the dedication of the people and the staff that are here. There are people that dedicate so much of their time and their lives and their hearts to this organization. And when I hear the stories of the survivors and how they've been able to come from ruins to riches and been able to move on with their lives and raise their children and get jobs and homes and, you know, become free and truly be able to live their lives, I just can't imagine not being involved with something like that.
that's awesome. Thoughts?
I would really like to thank the staff and the volunteers and everyone who donates and the grantors, everyone who helps this organization be what it is, and helps them to help the community and help these survivors. I really want them to know each and every one of them is so appreciated and how very valuable they are to the success of this organization.
Fantastic. Is that good? You don't want to do your fill in the blanks? Gateway is what your job is and so on. We're just going to talk.
Yep,
We've done
I
that
get it.
before.
We've done that a few times.
All right, so.
Good to go.
Okay, so what is your name? Spell it, please.
I'm Donna Sims, DONNA-SIMS.
1M.
One M, please. I'm the director of programs at Gateway and have been for numerous years.
So how long have you been involved with Gateway?
You know, starting next month would be the beginning of actually in June would be the beginning of my 30th year at Gateway.
Excellent.
That's more than a minute.
What got you involved with Gateway in the beginning? What brought you here?
You know, I just started doing this work when I completed my master's and moved here from Indiana, and I had been working with the Westminster Police Department, and I decided, you know, even though I had tried to get away from working with domestic violence just so I could, you know, spread out, this is my passion. This is my passion, so.
Why is this your passion?
That's a good question. I care, you know, it's a very scary, it's a horrible, horrible thing that happens to women and kids, to adults and kids, but mostly we've worked with women, but, you know, our intervention saves lives, and that's what matters to me, is, you know, saving lives with adults, kids, and animals.
So, domestic violence look like to you? What is that definition to you?
It's my sister, it's my friend, it's my cousin, it's anybody, it's my neighbor. That's who it looks like to me. I mean,
what happens to them?
Man, they get stuck into a situation that just is devastating. It's devastating. What does it mean? It means it's somebody who's trying to always make things right. And they try, and they try, but it's not up to them to make it right. There's one person responsible in there, and that's the person who's perpetrating the violence and the nastiness against that human being. It's insidious, and it's deadly. So, you know, nobody wakes up one morning and says, you know, I think I'm going to get into an abusive relationship. You know, women have always been told to fix things, and that's what they try to do, and they can't fix that. So,
What is it that Gateway?
well, the hope is that they receive that message, that it's not their fault, that they're met with, you know, kindness and support and understanding that they're not to blame and they're met where they're at. Counselors give them the platform to just explore what they need to do to survive. Although, you know what? They've been surviving. If they're sitting in front of us, they are surviving. But to get to that place where they're able to live a happy life safely for their kids, for them, for their pets. You know, Gateway is an amazing organization. We save lives. All of the staff here are a part of saving lives, and it's incredible.
So what has Bina meant to you? How has it changed your life, changed you as a person?
How has it changed my life? It's been my life. Seriously. You know, I would not have stayed at an organization that didn't do this. You know, it's been my life. How has it changed it? It's been it. Yeah, it really has. It's incredible. Gateway is just, and when I say Gateway, what I'm talking about are all of the people that work at Gateway. We have always had such a tremendous staff meeting people where they're at and providing the kind of support and love and understanding that people need. So Gateway runs through my blood.
Well, as you know, Gateway has been here 40 years.
Yeah.
And can you talk a little bit about what it was like when you started and the evolution of what it is now?
Well, it was only 10 when I started, so, but you know, the reason I came to Gateway was because it had a good reputation, and I think at that point I made the commitment to continue that reputation and improve whatever we could. You know, really it wasn't that different. We certainly have expanded, and how we expanded was to listen to community feedback, to client feedback, and you know, we've added programs that reached out to, you know, the broader county, you know, via the extended stay program, and we had opened a second counseling program. I mean, we listened to what people said to us, and you know, we just kind of morphed accordingly, which is pretty incredible. One of the ways that Gateway also made the decision to change was allowing families to bring their pets. You know, if I take away one huge thing from here of happiness and accomplishment, it's the Bailey Project.
What is the Bailey Project?
You know, my coworkers and I decided to make it happen, that families that were telling us on the phone that they couldn't come in they couldn't leave their home without their pet, without their dog, without their cat, they wouldn't do it. And understandably, we realized, you know, hey, I wouldn't either. I wouldn't leave my animals behind. So the Bailey Project is, you know, that project that allows them to bring their dog or their cat in, and they don't have to be worried about that animal being injured back at the home, neglected. That emotional support gets to come with them. So, you know, the Bailey Project, it's actually named after my dog. This will be a hard one. While we were doing the kennel, Aurora Leadership was helping us out with that. That was a cool group of people, Aurora Leadership, that year. We had just gotten some funds from a kennel club, and Aurora Leadership said, we'll build the kennel for you. And they overheard that my dog was very ill. And so they coined it the Bailey Project and presented us with the big sign that says the Bailey Project. Whew.
With
Hopefully
Bailey's picture.
with Bailey's picture. So that I take with me very happily and fondly. And the very first person who utilized the Bailey Project had been living in her truck for 5 nights with her dog, Tater. And she realized that she could call Gateway. Someone said, you know what, we heard Gateway will allow you to do that. And she called and she came in. That was a cool thing, and we've never looked back with regret. So that was very cool.
Mm-hmm.
See, there's something about the Bailey Project, I could just talk all day because, you know, animals give us solace. So that's a very cool thing.
They do. Have a favorite memory of working at Gateway? Besides the Bailey Project.
Oh, you know what? 30 years of being here, that would be really hard for me. A favorite, all of the people, all of the staff that I work with, that would be really hard. I couldn't come up with a favorite. I just,
Do you have any?
One memory?
One quick
Just,
one?
I know, I'm not going to be able to answer that question either.
it's you know, one favorite. That's a hard one. I'm drawing a blank because I have so many.
That's okay.
There was a point where I was doing direct services, and one of my clients came back, and she was, you're not supposed to have favorites. But she's definitely one of my memories, one of my happy moments. She had probably one of the toughest lives of anyone that I've ever worked with, honestly. It felt to me as though she had been abused since birth in one way or another. And when she came back to me in her cowboy boots and her motorcycle jacket and her hard-ass persona just melted, and she just said, I am alive because of Gateway, and this place is just amazing. And, you know, that is a cool memory for me. She actually came back 4 or 5 years ago and just touched base again and said I'm good and alive and well. So that's a good memory.
That is a good memory.
Yeah.
Good job. What do you need to know about domestic violence?
I probably sound like a broken record, but it's not the person's fault. It's deadly. And we need to support them. We need to understand. And rather than coming back to them and saying, you know, what did you do? Or, you know, well, you know, can't you figure this out? Or can't you be different? Why are we not still looking at the perpetrator? Why are we still concentrating on the victim's issues and how they can change? I just, wow. I wish we could change that piece big time. So, you know, we've always said, let's get out into the community and educate as best we can. Give them accurate information. Try to dispel some of the myths. And we keep trying. And, you know, that's what I want to do. I want people to know that it's heinous, that it's deadly, and it's not the victim's fault. Broken record.
Nope, good job.
Not the victim's fault.
That's what I wanted you to say. A sentence, and I want you to repeat it and then fill in the blank. Thank you, Gateway, for...
Thank you, Gateway, for saving lives and being amazing.
And then this next one. Thank you, donors, for...
Thank you, donors, for allowing us, for keeping our doors open, for supporting us, for making it possible to save lives daily.
Excellent. Do you have any last thing you want to make sure you say?
Gateway rocks. But Gateway is the people that run it, that work it. Gateway staff are tremendous.
Good job. So the last thing
R-N-A-M-E.
Good one.
Is that what you said?
She's a silly one.
It's Doralee Larson. D-O-R-A-L-E-E, capital L-A-R-S-O-N.
And what is your involvement been with?
With Gateway has been peripherally direct for the last 30 years, if that makes any sense. So I sort of kind of be involved in certain things and then do my own job and then become more involved depending on the needs of whoever calls, clients, staff, whatever, that sort of thing.
So what do you
30
do in
years.
the community? What have you
30
done?
years.
I know. Well, 29 for me here, so
Exactly,
I can't believe I've known you that long.
Yes, I know. It's amazing.
We haven't aged.
I am, I was 10 when I started, I think. I am the executive director of the Denver Domestic Violence Coordinating Council, and also we manage the Denver Metro Domestic Violence Fatality Review team.
Okay.
And we contract with the Colorado Attorney General's Office for the State Domestic Violence Board.
Okay.
Other than that, nothing.
Nothing. So
Yeah.
so what does to you personally? How does that help you? Okay, let me start over.
Okay.
This is my
Start
first rodeo asking questions as the interviewer too.
Gotcha.
So what has working with victims of domestic violence meant to you?
That's an interesting question because I honestly haven't done direct services for probably 15 years. I moved from working directly with victims of domestic violence survivors into more administrative stuff because those folks who actually did direct services, or do direct services I should say, really should be younger and more energetic than I am. So I do much better sort of sitting behind a desk, behind a computer, doing research and data collections, which is what the fatality review piece is all about. Now, it was incredibly important because I think to really get a sense of how important this work is, you have to have some semblance of a connection with survivors of domestic violence. I have to have the background to do that before I can move into the administrative piece of it and the research piece of it. We got to stop this problem big time. I mean, it seems like it's sort of ongoing for many decades. And there's got to be a way to actually have an impact on the seriousness of the issue.
So this is Gateway tackling that issue.
Oh, good grief. I've thought about this a lot. Gateway is one of those programs that's sort of in that unsung hero category. You all have done so many innovative programs, whether it's Extended Stay or the Court Advocacy Program or the Bailey Project or anything like that, more so than anybody else, I think, in the state of Colorado. And I'm pretty connected state, I don't mean that negatively or arrogantly, but pretty knowledgeable about other programs in the state. And it's not that you do that for any fanfare or any notoriety or any accolades. You just do it on behalf of victims of domestic violence. And that's just so incredible as far as I'm concerned. Does that make that? Did that answer your question? It makes
That was
sense?
absolutely perfect.
Okay, good.
How do you feel Gateway has evolved over the years since you have really been impactful working with us for 30 years?
Gotcha. Well, again, it goes back to those services and programs that you all have established to meet the needs, the growing needs, and the different kinds of needs of survivors in the community. And again, it's one of those progressive kinds of things that you don't do it for other attention. You do it basically on behalf of survivors and needs of the community.
Excellent. Do you have anything involved with Gateway? Has there been something that has stuck out in your mind?
Well, this is going to sound really unusual, but probably the Bailey Project, just because I truly believe that the connection between animal cruelty and intimate partner abuse is huge, but we really haven't had a lot of professional or research attention to it until the recent past. And Gateway was one of the first, if not the first program in the state to actually establish that pets associated animal harm connected to domestic violence or intimate partner abuse. So that's probably my fondest memory. Not to mention that one of my favorite animals was Bailey.
Right. Bailey was your dog.
Yeah, Bailey was our dog, yeah.
And do you want to talk about how that name came about just real quick? I mean, do you know?
I have no idea.
Okay, never mind. I'll have Donna say that. Basically, Bailey had passed right at the time we were starting this.
Oh, I thought you meant his name.
Don't talk about
Yeah.
that. All right. Do you have any additional thoughts or comments about Gateway, what we've done in the community?
I would just say keep up the good work because, again, it is a stellar organization that does it compelled by the need, not compelled by the attention, not compelled by who you think you need to be important to. It's just, again, one of those groundbreaking kinds of quiet heroines. Is that what I want to say? Heroes, heroines, whatever. That you need the recognition, but you don't clamor for it.
Wonderful. She has some questions.
After me and then finish it. Thank you, Gateway, for.
Thank you, Gateway, for being the stellar, amazing program that you are. And keep up the good work.
And thank you, donors, for.
Thank you, donors, for recognizing the importance and the incredible value that this organization has in the community, in the state. Absolutely.
Can I ask one extra question?
You said two.
No, she lied to you.
Yeah, she did.
So I really like how you're very well spoken, and I feel like you can maybe speak to a higher level. But if you're explaining domestic violence to somebody who doesn't understand it, can you just, I know, big statement, but
Charlie
in
can
like
do this.
30 seconds or less, can you tell me what is domestic violence and why do we need to care about it?
Domestic violence, another term for it that's used nationally is intimate partner abuse, and it's basically when one person in a relationship is abusing on any level, whether it's emotional, psychological, spiritual, financial, the other person in the relationship. And why do we want to care about it? Because we want to save people's lives. We want to basically stop women, specifically, majority of victims are women, we want to stop them from having to go through this heinous situation.
Amen.
That wasn't really a definition, but
That was what I needed.
No, that was what we needed. That was
you.
great. Who are you?
My name is Hope Dunleavy, and I am a board member at Gateway. And do you want me to spell
Your name.
Hope Dunleavy, Hope, Dunleavy, Dunleavy.
Perfect. Awesome. Okay, how or why did you get involved with Gateway?
So I heard about Gateway through a family friend, and I could not believe how inspired she was, and so it inspired me to get involved. I began donating to Gateway, and then as I spoke to people involved with Gateway, I decided I needed to do more, and I really wanted to do more, and I joined the board, and so I've been a board member of Gateway since January of this year.
Okay. Continue being involved with Gateway. What keeps inspiring you?
So what keeps inspiring me is the stories of the survivors, and also talking to the people who work at Gateway. They are nothing less than extraordinary, and every board meeting that I've been to, I hear more, and I get a little emotional, and it just makes me want to provide support to such a great service to our community. And I really want to continue that. I want to help inspire other people to help the organization as well. So I feel that it's one person, $1 at a time is what's going to help change our society and our community. And I think Gateway is one of the premier organizations doing that.
Okay. What do you think of when you think?
So, I think that women in our society, unfortunately, are marginalized, and part of that is one of the way that that happens is through abuse. And I think that Gateway is providing such extraordinary service and multiple services. So between the counseling and offering housing and also offering the legal support, it's just helping women and helping their families and helping their pets as well, which I thought was awesome too. Really move their life along and become better. And so I think that being able to be on the board and being able to help support the folks at Gateway, we can hopefully improve one life at a time. Through the help that we give.
Fantastic. Do you have anything else that you want to just say about this experience for you, or what you're hoping to achieve, or anything at all about Gateway?
I'm extremely honored and proud to be part of the organization, and I just, want to do more and hope that I can provide, as much help as I can. And this year is the 40th anniversary, which I think is fantastic, and hope that the organization can go on for another 40 years helping people.
Fantastic.
Can you finish, repeat after me and then finish the sentence?
Okay.
Thank you, Gateway, for.
Thank you, Gateway, for providing such awesome services in our community and letting me be a part of the board to help fulfill your mission.
And can you finish this one? Thank you, donors, for.
Thank you, donors, for all of the money and the support that you give to support this wonderful organization.
Beautiful.
Anything else?
Good. No.
Okay, so what I first want you to do is to state your name and spell it for us, both first and last, and then state what your affiliation is with Gateway.
Okay.
Go ahead.
My name is Janet Kester, Janet Kester, and I'm a volunteer at Gateway.
How long have you been involved with Gateway?
I don't remember. 6, 7 years? Something like that.
Okay. And what made you get involved with Gateway?
Well, my sweetheart of a husband, after almost 40 years of marriage, at age 68, he had a stroke and became abusive, which was so sad. But I experienced abuse. And after he died, I saw a little ad in the Littleton Independent saying that Gateway needed volunteers. And I thought, I never imagined this, and yet I could do this. I know what it feels like, and I would like to help.
Do you want to talk about what our first conversation was like when you called me?
Oh, I remember. Yes, I'm having a hard time because
It's okay. You're not the first to cry today.
Okay. Yes, remember, because I've done lots of volunteer work over my life, and in fact I've been on board for another agency, and I was concerned about whether Gateway was a well-run organization, how was their money used, would my time be used well. So I asked lots of questions about whether Gateway was a good organization, and the answers I got were good. And I will say that in my years of volunteering, that has been reinforced. Definitely. I feel like it is an organization that is run well, uses the money well, and uses volunteers well.
So you volunteer.
I have given talks to organizations about domestic violence, what it is, and warning signs and so forth, and the services that Gateway offers. I've also been at tables at fairs and things like that, just to inform people about warning signs, what they can do, how Gateway can help.
What does a victim of domestic violence look to you? What are they? What's happening for them?
Oh my, life is hard. Life is unpredictable. Or actually, unfortunately, sometimes it's very predictable. But you know what, a perfect example might be that a couple weeks ago, I was at a table at a health fair, and probably 300 or 400 people went through that health fair. Not many stopped at the table, but those who did really needed us to be there. The anguish, the questions they had, how could we help? Could we reassure them that there were answers, that things could get better? I think it was valuable we were there.
And what does Gateway offer? What does Gateway offer them?
Gateway offers shelter, hope, in some cases a future, offers counseling, real resources like helping develop a safety plan, determining in fact, am I really being abused? And how do I react to that?
Excellent. One of the projects that you've volunteered your time to do around here. that's your hobby that
Oh,
you've brought to
yeah.
for the children and women?
Well, yes, gardening is my thing, and I guess I can't touch anything without gardening being part of it. So I had, in the past, was able to procure a grant from the Colorado Home and Garden Foundation for another organization to develop raised beds to help people with handicaps to garden. And so I thought, oh, maybe we could do something at Gateway, because the women and children here need beauty. They need calm. To me, that's what plants provide, and flowers certainly. So I managed to get a grant. So far we've done one. I'm hoping to get another one. So we did, at one shelter, we're able to re-landscape some things and provide some beauty.
And so I know here you bring potted plants, you bring vegetables for them to use. What is the metaphor between gardening and healing?
Oh, plants are healing. I've seen it over and over and over again, certainly in myself. And I think in some cases we were able to have children help plant some things. And I think that getting in the dirt and grounding to the earth and seeing the hope of something planted is going to produce something, seeing your life extended in some way. And so each time I've come and planted a few pots here of flowers and then come back later and seen them gloriously beautiful, I just imagine that those who are here are feeling that as well. And when you're in the depths of abuse and wondering what's going to happen in the next steps of your life, plants would help.
What has being involved for you?
Oh, I think it's been a way that I could use the skills I have. And I think all of us yearn for that. What has God given me that I can project out into the world? And I guess I've been able to do that. Speaking abilities and gardening abilities, relating abilities. And so, at the end of the day, that's very satisfying for me. And hopefully, a help to others.
Fantastic. So I'm going to say something, repeat it and finish it.
Okay.
Thank you, Gateway, for...
Oh, thank you, Gateway, for all that you do for those who are suffering. And for me, thank you for giving me a sense of satisfaction and of helping those who are in need.
And now this one. Thank you, donors, for...
Oh, thank you, donors, for the resources that are so necessary. All this help cannot be done without finances to support the staff who can get volunteers, who can provide the counseling. Thank you, donors. Very important.
Is there any last thing that you want to make sure you say?
Can't think of anything.
Okay, well, we're going to have you hold a 40 because this is our 40th.
It's Jen Standoff, Jenstandoff.
Great. And what's your role here?
The director of the emergency shelter.
Okay, great, awesome.
I got involved with Gateway when I was in undergrad, working on my bachelor's for social work. I interned here. So that's how I got started.
Okay, and so what is your involvement now?
My involvement now, well, I started out as a full-time overnight counselor, moved up into the director's position, so now I'm here full-time, Monday through Friday.
Awesome. What would a typical shelter?
A typical day working in the shelter would consist you come in, you get situated, you answer the phone if it rings, the women. There's a morning meeting that happens at 8:30 in the morning with women in the shelter. Just check in, find out what they're doing for the day. Then they go do their thing while we're in here doing case management, answering phones, and anything else that is needed.
What does doing this work mean to you personally?
Me, I enjoy, or what it means to me is I love watching these women grow. The women come, you know, they're in a broken place when they come in here, they're in crisis. And it's amazing watching them grow throughout the 30 days. Get their self-esteem back, get jobs, just be able to find their own way again.
Good. Where do you draw inspiration to work with this population?
From other women that work here, from my own experience, and just from, you know, helping these women or individuals better their lives or to get them back on track and knowing that you were a part of it.
This is kind of an odd question, but what does a domestic violence victim mean to you when you think of a domestic violence victim? What is that person?
What do I picture when I see someone who, the thing that comes to mind is an individual who's in tears. They're in the corner, like they're crying. They don't know where to go. They don't know who to turn to. They don't know how to ask for help. And that's what I picture. Just some scared individual who's just, you know, learning how to fly again or to be free type thing.
Excellent. Gateway in helping that. What is it that your staff does to help those victims that are in the corner crying?
We empower them. We give them the tools that they need. We're also here as a listening ear, show them empathy and compassion, and we start where they're at. So if they're in the corner, that's where we are. And then we work together to get them out and about.
Do you have anything else that you want to make sure that we know?
None that I can think of.
Okay, so I'm going to say a sentence, and I want you to repeat the sentence and then fill in the blank for me.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Gateway, for...
Thank you, Gateway, for allowing me to be a part of this awesome team, this place, and the experience that I'm getting from working with everyone.
Excellent. Okay, one last donors for...
Thank you, donors, for supporting us. We wouldn't be here without you.
It's good.
Bravo.
Awesome.
I don't know what else you want.
No, you did great. No, you were exactly what we need.
Can you say and spell your name for me?
Janine Klippel, JeneneKlippel.
And what's your role here?
I'm the Director of Development and Public Relations.
And how long have you been with Gateway?
I've been with Gateway 29 years.
Okay. What are you most proud of when you look back at your career or time with Gateway?
Looking back over the years I've been with Gateway, I think the thing that makes me the most proud is that I know for a fact that we have made a difference in this community. And even if it's just for one person, as trite as that sounds, I always say this, that even if we just helped one person in the whole time, that was one life that was incredibly important. But I know we've helped many more than that. So that's what I feel the most proud of, is just that people know we're here and they know where to reach out, and that's important.
Cool. So can you just give me a 30 seconds or less overview of what Gateway does and what it exists to serve, who it exists to serve?
So Gateway serves anybody who's a victim of domestic violence in the Arapahoe County area in the city of Aurora. And what we offer are many different things, because every client that comes to us is different and they need something different. So we have an emergency shelter, an extended stay shelter, a non-residential counseling program, we have a court advocacy program, and we have a program where people can come and volunteer and they can give back their time that way and their talents.
Cool. Anything that you caught from the day that you wish someone had said but they hadn't said it? I know it's been a long day.
I know.
People have said a lot of things, but is there anything that you would like to communicate, maybe even from an executive level, about programmatically
Well, I have something. I feel like what I want people to really understand in the community or just in general, that domestic violence is a choice. It's somebody choosing to perpetrate violence on another person in order to gain power and control. And so when we ask the question, why does she stay? Which is so typical that people say, what is she doing? Why is it happening to her? And what is she doing? What role does she have in it? Instead, we should say, why is he choosing to use violence to resolve conflict? And I think that's the most important thing we have to remember, no matter who the victim is. Yes, men can be victims as well. We have served more women over the years, but we do serve both. However, I want anybody that is even thinking about what is domestic violence to really think that it is a choice on the perpetrator's part, and it's not something that we should be asking, why is she staying or why is she doing anything? Why are they choosing violence?
Cool. As you look forward, because we're at 40 years, and as you look into the future, what are you most hopeful for Gateway to do and accomplish?
I think over the years, in my position especially, I have realized that it's harder and harder to raise the funding that we need because the programs have to grow, because it's an epidemic. Domestic violence is an epidemic in the community, and it has to grow. Our services have to be there. We have to stay solid. We have to be able to hire more people, because what we offer, our services, only thing that we can offer is our people to help people. We don't have a widget that we sell. We sell people helping people. And so if we don't keep getting the funding and the donor resources, we're not going to be able to stay afloat. And we are saving lives. We are doing homicide prevention. It sounds dramatic because it is dramatic. This is happening to people in their home. And the problem with that is that we all equate our home with love and safety. But when you don't have that in your home, you don't realize. And so this job has taught me that perspective of just how simple of a thing that I go home and just totally count on happening. People don't have that. They're not safe at home. So we have to be able to rely on the community to continue to be there for us in whatever they can do. Some people don't have money, and that is okay. Then come in and volunteer. Come and spread the word for us that we're here, so that there's never a victim that sits alone on the side of the road and not knowing where to go.
I love that. Oh, what's your ask today? I know we may not include that in the video, but I like to always have one.
So I would just ask that people inform themselves, because knowledge is power, and if you don't know, then you're not going to be able to help people. And it is such a pervasive crime in this community. It is everywhere, in every community. And so if you can get yourself educated on where can people go, what should I say, how can I help, what is the most important thing I can do if I know somebody who's being victimized, then that is going to be so helpful. And it's also going to lead you into another part of the ask, which is, how can I be involved? How can I be part of the solution? Because somebody has to be. If not you, who? So please step forward.
Oh, that's great. I love. Where do they go?
So victims?
List it off. If you want to know more information, where do you go?
Okay, if you want more information on how you can help victims and how you can help our staff continue supporting victims, go to our website at gatewayshelter.org. There's a lot of information there that can be super helpful, giving you safety planning, telling you what you can say and what not to say, and just what all of our services are, because we have an array of services that's really something to help everybody. We understand that victims are all different. They come from different walks of life. They all have something different. Even though they're all victims of domestic violence, they all have their own story, and we need to meet them where they're at with that story. We need to respect the fact that they are the expert on their life and they know what they need. And so a lot of those answers can be found on the website about the different programs we offer, so that you know where to reach out. You can tell someone where to reach out, and they can get the help they need, because there's somebody there 24/7, 365, and we're there to help.
I love it. That's great.
I mean, do you want me to say a memory? Do you want me to do some of the things other people are doing? Do you want to do those fill in the blanks? You know, I can do all that stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
So I have been in the community working with this field for 29 years, just talking to people, spreading the word. But one of the best thing that ever happened was one time I was at the Comedy Works, and I was just sitting in the front row, where I like to sit, and the comedian came out, and they talked to people in the front rows, and so they picked me and said, "Where do you work?" And I was a little bit taken aback because I didn't want to say where I worked because I didn't want anybody to make a joke of it, because there's nothing funny about domestic violence. But of course I'm proud of where I work, and I'm not going to lie, so I said what I did. And to this comedian's credit, they said, "There's nothing funny about that," and they moved on. Well, the story's better because when the show was over, it's crowded, people are rushing to get out, and somebody was just pushing their way through the crowd to find me. And she found me, and she gave me a $100 bill. And she said, "Gateway saved my life 10 years ago. And I couldn't do anything then, but I'm giving back today." And I'll never forget that. It was early in my career, and I've had to look back on that because sometimes raising money isn't easy either. I don't do the frontline work, and that's where my hats go off to the women that do that work, because that is hard, difficult, trying work. But raising money is also difficult. And so when I would think about that, it would really warm my heart to say, we're making a difference. And in that small little comedy club, that two major things happened. So basically that comedian really educated that whole audience, for one thing. And then the fact that she came forward and offered her support, it was wonderful.
Cool.
Now I forgot what the question was.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Gateway, for it. Got it. Thank you, Gateway, for letting me be a part of this journey that we're all on, letting me meet some of the most wonderful people that are on this earth. Thank you.
Aww. And thank you, donors.
Oh yeah, that's gonna be hard too. Okay, hold on. I hate crying because I'm the ugliest crier. Me and Oprah. Okay, so thank you, donors, for believing in us, for wanting to be a part of this journey, trusting us with your resources, letting us be a good steward of your resources, whether it's your volunteer time or your generous donations. We could not be here without you. And no matter how small or large your donation is, it matters. It's all making the big picture put together. Every little piece of the puzzle brings it all together. And without you, we wouldn't be here. And that just wouldn't be okay. We have to be here. Thank you. Hey, so please just state your name and how to spell it and who you are to Gateway.
I'm Joe Costello, and my name is spelled Costello and Joe. And I'm on the board of Gateway, been an active contributor and participant with Gateway for 25 years.
Okay, how did you get involved? Why did you get involved with Gateway?
I got involved when I wanted to do some fundraising for a local charity that had an interest for me. And so I was getting ready to run my first marathon, New York City Marathon. So I got involved with Gateway to raise money for Gateway, to convince people that I wouldn't be able to make it, and the more money they would contribute per mile, then the more money I'd make for Gateway. So I was able to make it, and then the next year I did it again. So I raised more money the next year. So I convinced people for a couple of years that I wasn't going to be able to make it, so that they would contribute money to the cause.
So what made you select Gateway as your charity of choice?
Well, I think that the underlying mission of Gateway was really the reason why I wanted to be involved. I grew up with, fortunately I grew up with 3 great sisters who I love and respect. I had 4 daughters that I raised who I love and respect. And I have 5 granddaughters who I love dearly. So, the whole thought that women and children not being respected or being disrespected was a cause that really caught my attention. So I thought it was near and dear to my heart. So I wanted to find ways that I could try to work to eliminate domestic violence.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
Your relationship with Gateway continue after you ran in the New York Marathon?
Well, I got involved as a board member, and then I also got involved with our organization participating at the holiday time to sponsor a children's benefit for kids of Gateway clients. So every year, and it's been going on now for I think maybe 15 years, we put together a holiday party for the children and for the moms at Gateway, and our organization, our company, raises money to fund that Christmas party or that holiday party every year. So we've been doing that for a long period of time. It's gotten bigger. We have maybe 150 moms and kids that come out for that every December, and that's one of the ways that I have continued to be active, and our company has continued to be active with Gateway.
And is what you do for Gateway annually?
We are involved in the wine tasting function. We are able to contribute a facility in New York so that people can bid and go to New York and enjoy some holiday time in New York, and we provide that every year. At least we have either 1 or 2 weekends a year, and so the events that we participate in include that. They include a marathon relay, so the employees of our organization also get involved in running for Gateway to raise money and to participate. And then we have an annual meeting. This year it's going to be in Toronto, but we have an annual meeting, and we do a fund run for Gateway to raise money for Gateway during that annual meeting every year. And so we have a lot of clients and employees who participate and run the fund run. We have a good time, and people get up very early in the morning and take off and then have breakfast, and we've made it part of our annual meeting every year.
Let's see. What has being involved with Gateway meant specifically to you?
It's been just a great way to give back to a needy, worthwhile organization, and it's a personal satisfaction thing for me. I'm glad that I can help families who are in need, and that we can do it not only that I can do it not only as an individual, but that our organization can participate also. And I think it's helped people in our organization feel better about the organization because we've been involved in something like Gateway.
Fantastic. Memories working with Gateway?
My favorite memory was our first holiday party, when at the time it was small, so we were able to buy individual gifts, knowing how many children were going to show up for the party, knowing whether they were boys or girls and what age bracket they were. And during the first year we had several young boys in their age 7 to 12 age bracket who were going to be there, and so there were going to be 4 of them. So we bought 4 basketballs to give out, and we had Santa came in, he gave out the gifts. Afterwards, this young man came up to me, and he had tears in his eyes, and he said, I didn't get a basketball. And we realized at the time that we had bought 4 basketballs, but there were 5 boys that were going to participate in the party, and we didn't buy that extra basketball. So we were all feeling pretty bad about it, and we were cleaning up all of the wrapping paper because the kids we had individually wrapped all the gifts, and we cleaned up all the wrapping paper, and we found another basketball, a 5th basketball. We had bought we had bought 4, and there was a 5th basketball that was still wrapped up in all of the wrapping paper. And we looked around at each other, and we were flabbergasted. And it was the 5th basketball that I remember.
That's awesome. Okay, I had another question. What would you like to say to other donors, other people that are supporting Gateway? As a board member, what would you like to say to the community that's supporting as well?
Well, that Gateway as an organization does a wonderful job in using the resources that they have, and resources are really limited in a nonprofit like Gateway, and every dollar that's raised is a sort of a labor of love. And the thing that has always impressed me with Gateway is that the board and the people that are employees of Gateway do everything they possibly can to maximize the value of every dollar, to use those dollars in the most effective, efficient way to take care of the clients, to house them, to feed them, to help them on their way, hopefully, to a life where they eliminate violence from their existence. So what impresses me about Gateway is the fact that they do such a phenomenal job in using every dollar in the most efficient way possible to help people.
Okay. Should he say thank you?
Love
You
to
ask-
get a so answer to her because I'm over here.
Okay.
But can you finish this sentence? Thank you, Gateway, for.
Thank you, Gateway, for allowing me to spend the last 25 years in making contributions that otherwise I would not have probably made in my life. And it's made a difference for me, and hopefully it's made a difference for others also.
Now I want you to do it again, and I want you to say thank you, donors, for.
Okay. And I want to thank all of the donors, all the hundreds, thousands of donors that over the years have participated in helping Gateway to become the organization that it is.
Do you have any final thoughts, or you said it?
Just thank you for allowing me to be part of this. I appreciate it.
May I ask one last question?
Sure.
Again, but how have you changed as a person since being involved here?
I think that I've changed as a person in being involved with Gateway because it's made me more cognizant of the fact that there are a lot of people that are in family situations that are really difficult, very challenging, hurtful, sad, and that if we can bring a little bit of satisfaction, a little change, a little happiness, into their lives, then it's meant everything to me that I can participate in a little way in achieving that.
Beautiful, thank you.
He is a professional. To ask you to say your name and spell both names, or all three names, and then just say what you are, and you're a past staff person.
Okay.
Okay, so go ahead.
So my name's Karen Jo Nelson. That's KarenJoW. No.
She was almost waggling herself.
I was
She's
almost
very
waggling
clever.
myself.
That's weird.
Yeah, because
That
I
was-
never was.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, so it's
Nelson.
Nelson. Nelson.
And what was your involvement with Gateway?
I was the office coordinator for 10 years.
Okay. And what was it that brought you to Gateway?
Honestly, we lived like a mile from the job, and I applied.
Okay.
I mean, it wasn't anything special when I first came.
So what did it 10 years?
And I have to say, I would still be there if we hadn't had to move from the area. It was a very rewarding position, getting to work with the clients and the staff and hear their success stories and hear their joy. Because some of the ladies people would come in without any happiness, no reason to smile. And then by the time they would leave, they would smile or just even a little thank you for sending a fax for them or mailing something. It was rewarding for me because it was so impactful for them.
Nice. Okay. What did being involved with Gateway and that whole process mean for you personally? How did it help you grow as a person?
I was really young when I first came on, so I learned a lot. I think it helped my personal relationships. It helped my growth because, you know, being 22 years old and coming into this city and coming into that position, I didn't know a lot, and so I learned a lot. Those ladies that were helped while I was there, they taught me too. It was a educational piece for me too. So I felt heartwarmed when I was there, and I'm not gonna lie, I miss it.
Yeah.
It was my family.
I miss you too, girl. What would you say were some of the things that you learned, the most important things that you learned over the time there?
Self-care and respect and not accepting anything less than what you really deserve in life. And I just like being influential to those people, helping people. I mean, I've had other jobs. They're not as meaningful. They aren't as impactful. They're definitely not as heartwarming.
Yeah.
I miss those people.
Yeah. So, you were there for a good chunk of those years. In your time there, how did you see Great Gateway grow or evolve? Did you see any big changes that you can think of?
I would say because of the world was changing, so was the needs of the people that would come in. Maybe it went from being just a lady with her kids to a lady with her kids and animals to it just was a constant evolution of changing, and Gateway was always open to changing with them to meet the needs of the time,
Yeah.
because every time is different.
Yes. Exactly. So, or anything that happened while you were there that sticks out as special to you?
So I thought about this, and I think one of the things that really I loved, the annual, I don't even remember what we called it.
The wine tasting?
No,
Oh, the luncheon.
the luncheon.
The
Big-
Domestic Violence Awareness Luncheon.
Yeah, because I was able to reach out to people in the community and ask them for donations for the silent auction, and it was just great to see people want to support Gateway and the people, and then the event itself, people bidding at the silent auction. That was my favorite part. I have no qualms about asking people to support Gateway. That was just a big thing.
Awesome. So I'm going to say a sentence, and I want you to repeat that and then just fill in the blank at the end, okay?
Okay.
So thank you, Gateway, for...
Thank you, Gateway, for helping me grow and helping many others.
Perfect. And then the last one, again, repeat and then fill in the blank. Thank you, donors, for...
Thank you, donors, for supporting Gateway.
Okay. All right. Do you have any last thing you want to say?
No.
You did great, Karen. And say your name, spell it, and then what you do here at Gateway.
Okay, my name's Linda James, LINDA-JAMES. I'm the executive director at Gateway.
And how long have you been at Gateway?
I have been at Gateway for 30 years.
Okay. And you did great. So repeat my question back. So that's great. So when I ask a question, just repeat it back. So what was it that brought you to this agency?
Before I came to Gateway, I used to run runaway and homeless youth programs. And so I worked with teenagers, and I had decided, because of all the complications of working with teenagers in residential shelters and worries, that if I was going to run another nonprofit, that it would be for women. And so when I actually got hired from an ad in the paper. That's something that doesn't even happen today.
Yeah.
So when I saw that there was an opening for an executive director for domestic violence and working on the behalf of women in the community, I decided that that was my next heartfelt cause.
Okay. So what do you think?
I think of somebody who has to gather a lot of their inner strength in order to feel like they can rise above of what's happened to them. That I don't really see them as a victim, but I see them as somebody who's reaching out for help and wants to survive and will survive.
So at Gateway, we don't call them really clients or victims.
Correct.
What do we call them?
We call them survivors. They have a tremendous amount of resiliency, and they've been in, the most treacherous of situations. And to be able to reach out for help and say that I want something different in my life and I deserve something different in my life is a powerful and very strong move on their part to improve themselves and to protect their children if there's children, protect their pets if there's pets, and to move on to something greater, something that they deserve.
That's fantastic. You're doing great. You've been here for almost all of the years.
I know.
What?
I was only 12.
Yeah. Well, and Dora Lee was 10 when she started.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So you guys were just little kids.
Yeah.
So when you started, Gateway looked one way, and now today Gateway looks another way. What are the accomplishments that you've seen over time, and why did they come into play?
Gateway has accomplished many things over the 30 years that I've been here. When I first started, we had our emergency shelter and the crisis line and a non-res program. But the non-res program wasn't as expansive as it is now. But what we learned over the years is that the needs of the clients, both in terms of wanting to be able to go into independent living, that wasn't something that they could do without having the time to be able to look at permanent housing, find permanent housing, receive assistance for permanent housing. And as a result, we opened the extended stay program. And that program gives people a leg up because they can stay there instead of 30 to 45 days. It's designed to they can stay there from 90 to 120 days. And during that time, they can learn more about the community, what's available in housing. They receive support, case management, life skills building, and through that they're able to change their situation and develop into an independent living situation, as they're not going to be returning to their home where they left.
Excellent. Can you talk a little bit about?
So the Bailey Project began because what we were finding is that a lot of, at the time, women, because we also serve men in emergency shelter as well, that they were afraid to leave their abuser because they know the kind of harm that an abuser can do to their pet. And so what would happen is they either had to stay because they were afraid to leave and they had nowhere to go, or what we found that when we opened the Bailey Project, that there was a woman who found out about us. That resource really hadn't been available in the community, and she'd been living in her car for 9 days with her dog. And so she was our first person to come into our emergency shelter with a pet. And during the course, that project started somewhere around 2009. And since that time, we have had over 1,400 nights of pet care for women who have come into shelter. I kind of screwed that.
That was good.
You did good.
It's a very emotional topic. Victims of domestic violence have gone through an incredible amount of pain and struggle. And for me personally, it's very rewarding to know that we can reach out into the community, let people know that we're here for them, and be able to provide assistance in a way that is actually helpful for them. It's supportive. It gives them resources. It gets them off the street if they left, because 50% of women who leave their abuser wind up homeless with their children. And for me, when you have contact with survivors after they've received services and they say, "You saved my life," it's very powerful.
Excellent. How do you pick one?
Yeah. How do you pick a
I don't know.
a
Do you have
memory?
one?
Well, the things that happen at Gateway, sometimes are actually like magical. There is people in the community who are totally behind the cause, and they show their support through financial donations and through in-kind donations. And that kind of recognition and validation that, it's important that people escape the cycle of violence and they want to help with that is very, very important. The other part is having survivors who have received our services who also want to give back to the agency, and they send financial contributions. This is a really powerful memory for me. There was a woman who came to our door during the holiday season, and she had been in our shelter with her mom. And she said, I stayed at the shelter 15 years ago, and now I'm on my feet, and I'm grown up, and I want to give back. And she had a carload of toys for the children. It was amazing. In fact, I had to walk away for a minute because it was so overwhelmingly full of gratitude.
And what has it meant to you being a part?
Well, the thing that I feel is really wonderful about Gateway is that over the years we have developed the services that were responsive to what the clients need and what they tell us. When we found that the housing market and locating permanent housing and needing more time, we developed the extended stay program. When we found that abusers were hurting their pets and were using that as a way to get a woman to stay, we developed the Bailey Project. The Court Advocacy Program, it was one of the first in the country. It started in 1986, and it was a godsend to victims to have somebody meeting them at the court at a very scary time in their lives, in a very scary process, and following them through the whole court process. So they had someone supporting them, helping them, and giving them a leg up so that they too could come out on the other side.
Excellent. Linda did like me. We didn't prepare at all.
Right.
She just
How
wanted
am I
to.
doing?
You're doing amazing, Linda. Really.
Amazing.
You're really
good.
You weren't.
your poise, your intensity. Final thing you want to make sure to say?
I think that Gateway is as strong as it is in terms of an agency because the people who work here are not only amazing and highly trained and very skillful and full of empathy and understanding of what a person is going through, but also because with each other they become family. We become a support system to each other, and so when you combine those two things together, you have an incredible opportunity to work in a fabulous environment, which is really important because the caretakers need to be healthy and well taken care of so that they can provide the best care for the people who come and seek our assistance.
Excellent.
The people who come here who are looking for help, it seems like, okay, so if we're showing this video to donors, there's a disconnect. They might be able to imagine, some of them may have gone through something like this, they may have connections, but
One of three.
I can imagine there's a lot of people that have a bit of a disconnect.
Okay.
And so I'm wondering, as somebody who is in this space so much and knows it so intimately, can you explain it, domestic violence, Gateway, in a way that helps bring it home for me so that I understand a little bit more of what you're talking about? Does that make sense?
Like, what is intimate partner violence? What is domestic violence?
Yeah, and what is it, like,
Well,
help me.
you know, in understanding domestic violence,
Yeah.
one of the most important things is to understand is that it is an insidious crime, and it's very widespread. 1 in 3 people, if you go into a room with your friends or your relatives, 1 in 3 people is going to have experienced domestic violence. It could be emotional abuse, it could be physical abuse, sexual abuse, financial abuse. And one of the things that is very difficult for the victim, you know, when they have not come forward with what's going on in their home, is that they are feeling ashamed. They are feeling at a loss. They may not be aware that there's any other resources. They may be looking at other people's lives and saying, you know, why me? Why am I in this situation? And it's not something that I want to share because I feel it makes me feel bad about myself. Their self-esteem has been really worn down. Their ability to feel like they can, you know, rise above and be part of what other people view as the norm is just, you know, kind of out of their reach. And they worry about their children, they worry about their jobs, they worry about, you know, their families and how the family is going to react. You know, their friends may be in healthy relationships, and so they feel really kind of cast out. So it's really important to understand from the beginning that this is not something that only a few people suffer from. It is a national problem, and it is a very serious problem.
Thank you for that.
That was awesome.
Gateway for...
Thank you, Gateway, for being here in the community.
And thank you, donors, for...
The support that you allow us to give to people who are reaching out for our assistance. Without you, we couldn't do it.
Perfect. And it's okay. Yeah, that's good. Thank
And
you.
then we're going to have
Is Lisa Gertzen, Lisagertzen, and I'm the program director here at our Gateway Court Advocacy Program.
fantastic. How did you get involved with Gateway?
You know, becoming involved in Gateway was a pretty great experience for me. I had been doing in-home counseling for Colorado Boys Ranch for a number of years, and I was hired on at Gateway as their child advocate initially, and I worked as the child advocate for 3 years, and now I'm the program director. But I love this. I'm saying too much.
You're doing.
Oh, you're fine.
You actually don't even worry about it. You're doing really good.
Okay.
Really good.
What was I saying?
About how you got involved with Gateway. You started as
The program director, and I've been in this position for 4 years now.
Excellent. Okay, so what is it in your work that you do that gives you the inspiration to keep on doing this work? Because it's difficult work.
It is difficult work, but it's also very rewarding. And time again, I am just amazed with my clients' resiliency. And every time a person comes to me, I really find their story in a story that could just as be easily mine. So I appreciate that, and I hold a lot of value and respect for women who are trying to get out of a domestic violence relationship. It's not about so much the court process as it is their process. This is a time for them to come to us and really learn what's going to work for them and work for their family. It's not about the prosecution side of the case, although that sometimes can be a catalyst for women whose partner is being prosecuted for domestic violence. I think one of the reasons why I mentioned working at Colorado Boys Ranch is because, you know, domestic violence is so pervasive. And in many of the cases that I worked at as an in-home counselor for Colorado Boys Ranch, of course, domestic violence was a part of that. But it wasn't our focus. And now I think back on all of those cases, all those families I serve, not only does it affect the individual, it affects the children, it affects their pets, it affects extended family, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins. It's a ripple effect. And that's what keeps me coming back to this job time and time again, because it is really so rewarding to see women rise above their circumstances and really truly see how strong they are. So.
The kind of nuts and bolts, the A to Z of when a client comes in here, like what brings them here in the first place? How do they get here? And then how do you help them? How does Gateway help them?
So we help in a couple of ways. Not all clients who come to our office really want to be here. Obviously, when they come through our doors, that means that their partner has been issued a ticket or a summons for assault and battery, for harassment, for injury to property, whatever the charge may be. So that initially gets our client in because they're subpoenaed to be here. So they're under an obligation to come and let the court know what they want. At that time, we can really sit down with the client and understand their individual stories. And one thing that I've learned with this job is to not read the police reports, because a lot of times when you read the police reports, you'll have some judgment as to what happened. And I stopped doing that a long time ago because I want to hear what my client experience is, not through a third party. And that has been a valuable tool in, being able to help people. Do you need a no contact order? Is there a safety issue? Are you ready to exit? Are you not ready to exit? It doesn't matter. We're still going to be here through every stage of your process. If it's not today that you're exiting, maybe it's going to be 6 months from now. Maybe it's going to be 2 years from now. We don't know, but I think that's something so wonderful that we have an open door policy and that people can come in. And this is really an office for outreach. It's a crisis outreach because nobody can reach our shelter or our admin building, but they can come here and they can reach out to the courthouse. And a lot of women come in and they're like, I think I need to leave this relationship. I think I need a divorce. I don't know how to do it. I don't know how child custody is going to work. He's threatening, me that if I take the kids, that he's going to kill me. So it's a great opportunity that we are here in this building. And it's a gift that Aurora gives us for us to be here. So
They come to the other buildings.
well, because they're confidential, right? So they're our shelter and they're going to remain confidential because we want all of our clients to be safe.
And this is a public building?
This is a public building, yes.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so what has with Gateway meant to you personally?
Well, before I started working here, let me see how I'm going to word this. This might be a little bit difficult. I won't go into too much of my personal history. But, domestic violence is a topic that's close to my heart. Because as a woman, I have experienced certain forms of domestic violence in one way or the other, but I didn't know it at the time. And I think that is so ironic, but now I do. And, now I have a better sense of how to not only help other women, but what am I able to tolerate and what I won't tolerate anymore. So just being here and just being and working with this great group of women, it's a supportive environment. And that's one of the things that I love best about my job, and it's why I come back time and time again, because I always think, gosh, the people I work with, they're doing such a good job, and how do they do it? How do they do this hard work? I'm doing the same work, and I'm asking them, hey, do you need help with this case? So it's great. It's a great teamwork.
Excellent.
I have a lot of, favorite memories working with Gateway. I love the stuff that we do out in the community. I love to go speak to kids and, provide information to different schools. And I love our wine tasting that we have every year. I think that's a great opportunity for us to come together in a community setting and recognize the importance of this work and raise money for it. So those are my favorite things, just reaching out to people and helping people.
Excellent. Okay, is there anything that you want to make sure we know that you don't feel like you've said about what you do
No.
here, or, okay?
What, do you think you got some stuff?
I know we did, and I have 2 last things to ask
Okay.
you, okay? So I'm going to say a sentence, and then I want you to repeat that sentence and then fill in the blank.
Okay.
Thank you, Gateway. Go along, but I'll have you just start talking about, like what you were saying, about what was the first thing, like the domestic violence?
We were talking about some of the dynamics you see in the domestic violence clients.
Okay.
And then we were talking about the barriers.
Oh, for a DV client, okay.
And then how I approach them.
I like that.
Okay.
Okay. So if I forget the question, we'll say, okay, just start, like you can rephrase that question to say, this is how I like to approach a victim of domestic violence. I do, so that we're getting that context of what. Okay, so just start out by saying your name and spelling both first and last.
Great. My name's Lisa Vigil, Lisa-Vigil, and I'm a prosecutor here in my jurisdiction.
Okay, and where are we at?
We're in Aurora, Colorado.
Okay, at the Aurora Municipal Court?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so why don't you go ahead and start talking about some of the dynamics of a domestic violence victim, what you notice, what you see.
As a prosecutor, one of the things that you see about the dynamics of domestic violence victims is this conflict, this mental conflict. On one side, they feel incredibly ashamed and guilty about being a part of this process, and they want to fix all the problems. They don't want to come through the court. They think that they can do it on their own. And when we talk about that guilt, they don't want to see their partner get in trouble. So they feel like this is their fault. They feel like they brought this on. So they're pushing against the system. So that's what happens on one end. And on the other end, you have that more logical piece that is saying, there's something wrong in my partnership. I don't like how I'm being treated. You know, my partner forced me to call law enforcement, and here we are, and we really need help. And so in some regards, they really want to be a part of the process. They really want to be a part of the system. But then again, they also have that nagging voice in the back of their head saying, I don't want to get my partner in trouble. We can fix this. This isn't that bad. So you really see that struggle. And at different times, their behavior reflects that. I see victims who can be very angry, who don't want to receive my phone calls, don't want to talk about their testimony, don't want to come to court. At other times, you have victims who are reaching out for our help, really wanting to discuss how this is going to affect them, discuss how it's going to affect their partner. And I think that roller coaster happens on and off in the entire process.
For getting domestic violence victims the justice that they deserve and the support they deserve.
I think there's 2 different barriers that I see that really impact victims the most. And the first is the resources, because so many of them need resources across the board, whether it's emotional support. Some of them are so isolated they don't have friends or parents or anybody that they can lean on to really build them up when things get very difficult. You also have the different dynamics of they can't run their home. Things like they don't have somebody to help take care of the child when they're at work. They don't have somebody to share in the responsibilities of cooking or cleaning. So they really need help with those resources, but sometimes even bigger than that. Some of them need housing. Some of them need to get away from their partner. Some of them need to get careers and job skills, and they don't have that capability because they've been the home provider. So at this point, some of them really need even small things to very large resources. And for some of them, the more needs that they have, the bigger a barrier it is for them to stay committed to this process. Because if they don't have these resources, it's very easy for them to go back to the situation that they're in and live with whatever pain and control and beatings they may get from their partner, but they have somebody to provide for them dinner or childcare and all those things. So you see a lot of women who without extensive resources aren't willing or able to stay with the process. And then the second thing that I see that was really difficult is the legal process itself. What a lot of victims aren't aware of is that this is a very extensive process, and it's not something that is resolved overnight. And that can create a tremendous amount of stress and difficulty for them. I always tell my victims that we're in it for the long haul and we're a team. So that means we need to work together from here on out till the resolving of the case, which could be a month, it could be 6 months, it could be a year. So once they have an understanding of that in the beginning, sometimes I think it sets up their expectations a little bit more. When we have to go to trial is even more difficult for victims, because sometimes they don't appreciate what the trial process is like because most of them have never been a part of it. And when they're coming to court, they're for the first time, some of them seeing their abuser and their partner since this incident. And that for them is quite emotional, because they have to stand in front of everybody and tell them what kind of abuse that they've been suffering and point the finger and get that person in trouble. Even though on the inside they still care about that person, they still have a tremendous amount of love and respect for that person. And they don't always understand how difficult that may be until they're in that moment. And I think what else is very difficult for the victims is they don't understand what their partner may have been saying about them throughout this process, because they're not here during the court process. So a lot of times victims come and they're being victim shamed, where they're saying that they're alcoholics, abusers, child abusers, and all those things in court. And that is very frustrating, it's very shameful, and they get very upset about and very enraged to know that their partner is pointing the finger at them and saying that this is their fault. So being a part of the courtroom process, even to that point, is difficult. But what could be one of the most difficult things for the victims is the actual verdict and the punishment phase. Because even if we can get them to come to court and testify and get through that very difficult process, hearing the verdict and what that means can be very emotional for them. For some of them, it's a weight off their shoulders. They're very happy to know that the process is done and that their partner may or may not be held responsible. For others, it's very emotional because they know now that their partner is in trouble. They know that there's going to be consequences, especially if their partner is looking at jail time. That can be very difficult. We can see that there's a lot of guilt and a lot of shame for some people. So even getting to that point is extremely emotional. For others, in the process, it's difficult that they don't have their voice heard in the courtroom. They don't get to address the court. They don't get to tell everybody their story. They don't get to tell the jurors exactly what happened, weeks leading up to this, days leading up to this, afterwards. So it's very frustrating that they don't get to tell everybody the whole story. Most of them don't realize that until they come to court and they're in the trial process. So I think those barriers of having to wait for the trial to come, what it means to testify, what it means to face your partner in court, and then what it means to go through the sentencing phase can be very daunting and also somewhat liberating to some of the individuals.
As opposed to, differently, or, what kind of challenges, what kind of things do you feel like you need to do differently for them, if anything?
Domestic violence victims are quite different than some of the other victims we encounter, whether it be for a traffic matter or a theft case, because there is this very important relationship that this person has. They know the other individual who's involved, and not only do they know them, but this is probably the most important person in their life. They're very connected to that person. And so their dynamics compared to another case is much more intertwined. And I think as a young prosecutor, I used to think that we needed to save victims and make sure that we found their partner guilty and had a sentence. And now I've realized for them, it's more about the process. And I really need to, as a prosecutor, sit down and understand what is going on in their life and why they're at the portion that they're at. And when I can have a conversation with them and let them know, I'm understanding you. I hear what you're saying and about why you've been staying or why it's been difficult or what you're needing out of this or what you're hopeful for. I feel like I build that relationship with them. And when I think about what they need, I have a more practical approach. Again, I want to help them get through this process in a way that is meaningful and that they can understand and that they can be heard. It's not necessarily about what happens if we go to trial or what the sentence is, but the fact that they feel like they've been heard and that they're getting something out of the process. And I find that when I have that more understanding and practical approach to working with victims, we've built a better relationship.
So I know that these victims can be, it's very tenuous, they can be very frightened, and And your role here is a little different than Gateway. So what is it like for you? What does it mean to you to have Gateway right here on site to be able to talk through some of the victims' issues with you?
I think that's a great question. As the prosecutor, sometimes you have to be that voice of reason. I can listen to what they're saying, but I have to tell them, I hear what you're saying, but I don't agree, and I have a different job. I have to move forward with the case whether you'd like to or not. Gateway is very important because they're that sister or partner or friend who will listen to whatever the victim needs to say. Whether it's the victim calling to say, I'm having a great day, I'm really feeling good, I'm finally getting off my feet, or they can be there to listen to the victim when she's having a terrible day, when she's crying, when she's upset. I can't always be there to do that. And we really need partnerships like Gateway and the women and men who work there to be there in those dark and exciting moments when I simply can't be there. And some of these victims really need that connection. They need that connection to say that they have somebody that they can rely on. And I think Gateway really fills that gap when I can't always be there, or when I can't listen and talk with the victim about certain things.
Right, because your role's very different. Good. Do you think you need anything else?
No, I think that's great.
I think you did amazing.
Good, okay, good.
Wow.
I have to win, and that's what's going to be best for the victim. But I really understood. Sometimes victims aren't trying to leave the relationship.
No, they're not.
They're trying to get their partner help. They need me to kind of step in and be that person to force the help. And so sometimes I'll approach them and say, well, how are you doing with your partner? What's going on? Well, things are better, things like this. Well, you're telling me that things aren't great, so let's see if we can get them the treatment. Maybe it's going to mean you guys can be a family again. Maybe it's going to be that step you need for him to be a better father. Or maybe it's going to be the time where you realize, I don't want to do this anymore. When I started to approach it more like that, where I understood what they were going through, and we all can't change everything, but we can try to be that voice of reason, that support, and that help. Once I started to look at it more like that, I realized that my relationship with victims was better.
Yes, it's true on their life.
Right.
And so they're going to want something different than me. Like I see a victim and I think, you need to get out, but that's not what's best for them. They're the expert. What do you want to get out of your life? Spelling, and if you just want your first name, you can do that. You can use your whole name, but spell whatever names you tell us, and then tell us what your position is here at Gateway and how long you've been here.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, hello. My name is Michelle McKay, M-I-C-H-E-L-L-E. Last name's M-C-K-A-Y. And my position here at Gateway, I'm children's counselor.
And when did you start at Gateway? How long have you been here?
I've been at Gateway about 17 years.
Okay. And what brought you to Gateway initially?
Well, let's see. A close friend of mine had actually told me about the program. I wasn't even really aware that there were shelters for battered women and children at the time, and I just always had a passion for working with children, so I just thought that that would be something I would be really interested in, helping women and children.
And what is it that a day looks like?
Typically, not one day is ever the same, so you just never really know. But on an average, we come in, we interact with the children. If we have a family that's coming in, we'll sit with the children, we'll do intakes with them. We kind of just get them introduced to the facility, make them feel as comfortable as possible. We give all the kids welcome gifts when they first come, so they get like a pillow, they get a welcome blanket or a stuffed animal, something to make them feel comfortable about being in the shelter. And then again, we do paperwork with them just to get to know them a little bit better, how we can work with them while they're here and make them feel better while they're staying here. If they need someone to talk to, that's what we're here for.
Excellent. What has being involved with Gateway meant to you personally?
Personally, it's meant a lot to me. It's been rewarding. And I think more so because when I'm out in the community, so many people are always acknowledging the work that we do and how rewarding that work is. And it just makes me feel good to be a part of that, to know that not only am I invested in this, but people in the community, they really respect the work that we do here. And so I just love being able to give back to the kids and making them feel good about themselves during times that are really hard for them.
Where do you draw your Gateway? Because this is not easy work.
Where do I draw my inspiration to keep working at Gateway? Well, again, I think it's the kids and the helping the families, you know, just being able to make them happy while they're here. And they enjoy our groups, and it's just, I don't know, it's like a special connection that I have with the kids here, and it's like we're like family, you know, and even though they're here for a short while, we make that connection, and I'm someone that they can talk to, and we make each other laugh. And so it's only for a short while, but it's extremely meaningful and it's priceless.
What does a group look like?
Well, it would depend. We have kids usually anywhere from, usually it should be 4 and up, but kids these days are different, so we have babies wanting to come to groups. They're not having it any other way, so it would just depend. There's 2 children counselors, so sometimes we can divide the groups up into a smaller group, and then we have bigger kids in group. A lot of times we talk about the effects of domestic violence and safe touches and what are bad touches, but that's not really our main focus, because our focus is that they're here now, they're safe, and we don't want them to have to keep dwelling on the things that they were dealing with when they were back at home. So we just want them to feel happy while they're here. And so we do a lot of group activities, we do art projects, we do things that are inspirational, help them build up self-esteem, and we do things about family. So it just depends on the group. Pretty much, it's nothing just set in stone.
Do you have a favorite memory working with Gateway?
A favorite memory other than working with my team? I have a phenomenal team that I work with, but when it comes to working with the family and our children, I think some of my favorite memories is that a lot of times kids leave and they draw pictures. They'll leave pictures for me, and it's just, I have a photo album with all their artwork, and I always tell them, I'll always keep this, I'll always remember you. And so it just means a lot. I've got notes where kids, Miss Michelle, I'm gonna miss you, and you know, so those things are really inspirational to me.
Okay, I want you to repeat it and then fill in the blank for me.
Okay.
Thank you, Gateway, for...
Thank you, Gateway, for giving me an opportunity to fulfill one of my dreams.
And this next one, thank you, donors, for...
Thank you, donors, for making it possible for us. Thank you, donors, for being able to help us to give to our families and the children's, because without our donors, it would be impossible for us to stay afloat.
Anything else you want to make sure we know?
And I just want to say that I love being a part of this organization, and I look for many more years to come of being a part of Gateway.
Good job. The Gateway is here.
Okay.
So
I'm Peggy Sanborn, Sanborn. I'm on the board of directors for Gateway, have been for 15 years. And I've been volunteering on the crisis line for Gateway for 27 years.
when you ladies are ready.
We're ready.
Okay, so how did you get involved with Gateway? Why did you get involved?
I got involved with Gateway because my older sister, that came on quick, was in a very abusive relationship. And it happened very early on. She's not married to him anymore, but I always knew that if the opportunity came about, I would get involved with domestic violence and support any safe house that provides protection to women and children who are in domestic violence situations.
You did good. But just talk to me, okay? You don't have to look at the camera or anything, or just talk to me, that they don't exist. So
Yeah.
that was good. Good. Do you need her to say something else again? Okay, perfect.
That's
All right.
great.
Thank you for sharing.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank
No,
you.
you're great. Thank you.
That's, like I've told other people that are crying, you're not the first one today, and you will not be the last, because I still gotta go.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so can you talk a little bit more about what your involvement with Gateway has encompassed?
My involvement with Gateway started out being working on the crisis line, mostly on Saturdays, pretty much every Saturday, and it was challenging, but I would say overall what I have learned at Gateway over that 27 years is patience, to listen to women. Most of the women and children who've come through simply want someone to listen to their stories, not to tell them what to do, but to advocate for them and give them options about what they can do and how they can get out of those situations.
Excellent. I personally have known you almost all of those years.
Yep.
And I know that you just have a very strong connection with Gateway. What is it that keeps you with that connection, keeps you involved?
What keeps me involved with Gateway and the connection is realizing what a pervasive problem domestic violence is, and all of the assumptions that exist out there in the world, meaning that so many people think it's only social economic levels that women suffer from this, and it's not actually. Some of the worst cases I have seen over my experience have been women that have been living in Cherry Hills Village, for example, and it's much harder for them to get out of those situations than it is for other women and children. So it's a passion. I'm very passionate about domestic violence and trying to make it go away, one day at a time.
Would you say that it's more difficult sometimes for people that have more economic resources?
I think it's more difficult for women that have more economic resources because their children in particular are used to a different lifestyle, and so it's very difficult to bring them into a community living situation. They don't like it, they feel responsible for it, and then the mother has so much guilt over doing that and getting out. And there's so much more control, I think, when you have more money in the situation.
Excellent. Okay, you mentioned that you work on the crisis line, and that sits right inside the shelter.
Yes.
What is a typical shift when you go in and volunteer on the crisis line like?
So, kind of hard to describe a typical shift at Gateway, especially on the crisis line, because really there is no such thing. You never know what call you're going to get on what day and what the situation will be on that given day. One of my favorite stories about working on the crisis line at Gateway is a lady who called every Saturday for months, actually, and I know her entire life story now after talking to her for probably 3 or 4 months. She always waited to call on Saturday when she knew I was going to be there, because we had the conversation about me being a volunteer, and she knew my name because I disclosed that. And I still to this day don't ever know whether she chose to leave her batterer or what happened to her, but I just feel like I was there and was a listening ear, and that's what she needed. And so I try to meet the women and children where they are.
What has being involved with Gateway meant to you personally? How has it helped you as a person grow?
So Gateway has helped me grow as a person by, again, teaching me patience, teaching me that most women just want a listening ear. They don't want you to tell them what to do or what you think they should do. I've had women call the crisis line saying, "Do you think I'm in a domestic violence situation? He held a gun to my head last night." And, the first ones of those are like, "Oh my God." Yes, you are, but you can't say that. You just talk through it with them, what their options are, that they can get out safely, that's what Gateway's here for. Before Gateway and before the other domestic violence shelters, they didn't exist. So they had no choice.
And what does a victim of domestic violence, what are they like? What is a victim of domestic violence?
So there is no prototype in my mind for a victim of domestic violence, because they can be, from any socioeconomic level, any gender, any race. They're all very, very different. So I don't really think there is a prototype, and that's kind of a difficult thing, I think, to explain to people that aren't familiar with domestic violence. What I like to say is domestic violence is not a pretty charity, because most people choose to believe it doesn't exist, and then they say, well, why doesn't she just leave the situation? Most people ask, the reaction I got when I started disclosing that I worked on the crisis line with a domestic violence safe house were, well, I've just never known anybody that's been in that situation. So, then they make assumptions about, well, it must be somebody at a low poverty level or something like that. And my response that I developed over a few years is, yes, you do know people that are in a domestic violence situation. They just haven't disclosed to you. And what does that tell you about domestic violence? That they're afraid to even disclose to their coworkers, even if you believe the statistics, which I personally do not believe the statistics of whatever it is, 1 in 4 women are experiencing domestic violence. It's much higher than that, because what you have to keep in mind is those are just the women that are reporting it.
Absolutely.
Yes.
What is serving on the board? How is that different? How is that meaningful to you? What do you do there?
Serving on the board of directors for Gateway is a little bit different than being intimately involved in crisis line calls for obvious reasons, but more of a fundraising more of organizational, helping Gateway continue their life-saving mission into the future from that standpoint. Fundraising is not my favorite thing to do, but what you come to realize is it has to be done. If we don't do it, nobody will, and then this safe house can't stay open.
Excellent. And then I want you to, go ahead.
Before you do that,
No.
tissue.
We didn't bring any out here.
Taught me what it's meant to me, comments that people have made to me over the years.
You already said a favorite memory.
Yeah, life-saving, I look at it as life-saving work, and we have to continue to do it because the problem's not going to go away. It's going to get worse.
Yeah. I don't know if you're still rolling.
I am.
Oh,
Good.
yeah. I'm sorry.
All right, good. I'm going to say a sentence, and then I want you to repeat it, and then just fill in the blank. Thank you, Gateway, for...
Oh, thank you, Gateway, for being there for all the women and children over so many years. And, it's a life-saving mission that Gateway is on, and they've saved so many lives, and the children and the women that have come through that come back. And I was just describing to Lisa, I was at a restaurant probably 10 years after I had admitted a lady into the shelter, and these are the things that, they don't happen often, but they do happen. And she came over and she remembered me. I didn't honestly remember her, but she remembered me and said, Gateway changed my life. And what would I have done if they hadn't been there?
That's awesome. Are they can I get the next one, or are they in there?
They're not.
This is the last one, so I'll just say the sentence and you say it. And okay. Thank you, donors, for...
Thank you, donors, for being there and for making Gateway a viable option, and please continue to do that into the future. It's needed now more than ever.
You did amazing. And your affiliation with Gateway.
Hi, my name is Sandy Plavin. That's Sandy Plaven, and I am currently a volunteer with Gateway and also a survivor.
Okay. Involved with Gateway?
My interaction with Gateway actually happened around 1992. I was in a very abusive marriage, and I reached out to Gateway through their crisis line and actually wound up coming into the shelter as a client. And as a result of that, I was able to get a lot of counseling, help, resources, and all of the tools that I needed to help me learn to break the cycle of domestic violence.
So what was your situation like that?
Actually, my marriage lasted for 18 years, and the entire time that I was married, there was physical, emotional, and psychological abuse. And the physical abuse was escalating, and unlike a lot of victims of domestic violence, I had the financial ability to leave the situation sometimes and go and stay at a hotel or a motel. I also had my own car. So I had a little bit of a different situation than a lot of other victims do. And it was one of those times that I had gone and stayed at a motel, and really at that point I was just done. I knew that I didn't know what to do. I felt like I was alone. I thought I was the only person that was going through this. I was very embarrassed. At that point, my family, I had reached out to them on previous occasions to stay with them and just try to de-escalate the situation and remove myself from the violence. And they were to the point where they were a little frustrated and would say things like, you really need to do something. You either need to leave or get a divorce. And because I had children, I wasn't at that point yet. And so as a result, I quit reaching out to my family members for help and a place to go. As a result of the isolation, I also didn't have a lot of friends that I could reach out to go and stay with. So I really did feel very isolated. So I think as a result of that and coming out of a really, really bad fight I didn't want to go back home, and I didn't know what to do. So I literally looked Gateway up in the phone book, because we didn't have cell phones at the time, and just called the crisis line, and from there was able to get some help and really have a person on the other end of the line that was very calming. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I had some options.
And after you came into the shelter, what was it like there for you? What was that experience like for you?
It was very scary because I did not bring my children with me into the shelter. So I went through the phone screening process, and it was determined that I was a candidate to come in and be a client and get some of the resources and the counseling. And for me personally, I did not bring my children into the shelter with me, and I felt that because the abuse was directed at me and not at the children, I felt like the best place for the kids at the time was to stay in the home with their dad, because I did not feel that he would then deflect and start abusing them. So I went into the shelter and did not bring the kids in. And once I came into the shelter, I did an initial intake with my intake counselor. And again, it was very hard because you get asked a lot of questions that are very embarrassing. You feel very ashamed. You question if you're doing the right thing, because I felt like once I started that process, I couldn't go back. Not that I wanted to, but it was an unknown, and I didn't know where that next part of my journey would take me. So we went through the intake in the shelter, and then at that point, it is communal living, and so you're in a home with other women and children that are going through the same thing as you are. Unlike other clients as well, because I did have my own car and I did have a job, I would pretty much leave in the morning and go to my job, and then at the end of the day, I would come back to the shelter and do counseling and whatever my chores were for that particular day. And it really was just feeling very safe for the first time in a long time, and realizing that you were among other women that were going through the same thing, and you actually felt safe, and the counselors were amazing, and the resources that they gave you, I can't say enough about how life-changing that experience was.
So now that you've gone through all of that and you're able to sit here with a new life, what is your inspiration to keep coming back to Gateway, to keep doing things like this, to volunteer, working with the children like you've done? What are some of those inspirations?
Just to continue to work with an amazing group of women that have a goal that is to save lives. And for me personally, to know that my children are going to be okay, that my son wasn't going to become an abuser, that my daughter wasn't going to become a victim, I think for me that was the biggest takeaway that I could ask for. And just continuing to be involved with Gateway and to help in whatever way I can, and to help whatever I can do, other women and children, just to be there wherever they're at and help them in whatever way that I can.
Is there anything else that brought you to Gateway that you'd like to share? Anything like that?
I think probably one of the biggest things that I'm extremely proud of is that my daughter, who is a child survivor of domestic violence, who has her own family and her own children now, is carrying the torch. She is very passionate about this, and she is putting herself out there, and she's telling her story, and she wants to help children of domestic violence and let them see that you can overcome this, you can break the cycle. And I think for me, one of the other biggest things that I think I'm proud of is that I was able to break the cycle, that as a result of the resources that I was given at Gateway, even though I went back into the home, I wasn't quite ready to leave. I stayed in the marriage probably about another 5 years. But one thing that I was, that I think for me was huge is that I wasn't the same person when I left the shelter as when I came in. I did not feel as much of a victim as I was before. I had resources, I had a safety plan, I had tools to help me get to a point where I could eventually break that cycle. And I'm extremely proud of that, and I feel that as a result of everything that I went through and what Gateway did for me, that not only did they save my life, literally, because I honestly think had I not reached out to Gateway that day and did what I did, that I probably would not be here today telling my story, because it was very bad and it was only getting worse. And I felt I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to do anything to change my situation. I didn't grow up with domestic violence. So I didn't quite really know what to do, where to turn, or what help was out there. So thanks to Gateway and the amazing job that they do, and the staff and the counselors, they're saving lives every single day. And I'm just extremely proud and honored to be a part of that effort.
Excellent, sir. What was that like for you?
It was awesome. I love working with the kids. It's hard also because you want to save everybody. You want to make their lives better. You just wish you could bring everybody home and just change the world in one day, and we all know that that's not realistic. But working with the children and seeing them have positive things happen in their life, seeing the moms be able to learn coping skills and how to interact with their children, and just see the kids every day. They would come into where the counselors would sit, and they would want to make it a point to just come in and say hi to you, or just give you a hug or something. And I think for me that was extremely rewarding, because you did feel like you were making a difference in a child's life.
Awesome. So what do you have in Gateway?
I think for me, it's been about a 27-year journey, my affiliation with Gateway, and it's been very rewarding. It's been very interesting, and it's a journey that I would never want to change for anything. And I think just having the relationships that I have with some of the people from Gateway, all these 27 years, I think for me, those are some of my fondest memories. They're relationships that will last a lifetime. And it's just, I don't know, I have a lot of good memories. I don't know that I can think of any one particular one that really stands out. I think it's just really the long-term ongoing relationship that I have that I would never want to change for anything.
Okay. Is there anything that you want to make sure that people know and hear?
I think the biggest thing is, don't be afraid to make that phone call. What I have learned is there's never a good reason to stay in a bad relationship, and don't be afraid to make that call, and just know that on the other end of that phone is somebody that does care, and that could be the call that changes your life. And I would just encourage everybody that supports Gateway in whatever way they support us to continue to please support us, because without that support and willingness to help us, we wouldn't be here today to be able to do the amazing things that we do.
Okay. I'm going to say finish it for me, okay? Thank you, Gateway, for
saving my life and my children's life.
Okay. I think she answered the second one already before this. So
that
was wonderful.
Sharing your
Anything
story.
else? You got it? You're good?
I'm good.
That was really good. Do is just state, you can just say your first name or you can use your whole name, whatever you're comfortable with. Say it and spell it, and then just say how you're affiliated with Gateway, which you're a survivor.
Yes. All right, my name is Stacy Evers, STACY-EVERS, and I am involved in Gateway as being a client slash survivor. So I got involved many years ago in 2010, and I was told by a colleague, from work, that she wanted to give me the number of Gateway, so that I called, and if I wouldn't call, she would for me. So it was one of those slaps in the faces of reality that someone else on the outside world saw my story, and I wasn't even recognizing it at the time. So
What was happening at the time?
Emotional and verbal abuse, which is tough to recognize. First of all, as a victim, but also as just a woman or human, I guess, in general. You don't recognize it, as many victims don't. And as you have said, at Gateway, 7 times before you recognize it. So, most of the time.
Right. Your first engagement with Gateway, what was your first involvement with Gateway?
It was an interview process to see if I was a candidate. And at the end of the interview, of a good 2-hour, is it an interview? I guess it was called an interview, but 2-hour session, and at the end of that 2 hours, she asked me when I'd come back. So that was the aha moment for me.
So what program were you involved in?
I was in counseling.
Were you involved in when you
I
started?
just had the outpatient,
Non-residential.
Non-residential counseling. And my counselor was amazing, and I wish I could have a relationship still with them, or her, because she changed my world, so.
Can you tell us how she changed your world?
I'm sorry. She always was available, I guess is what I'd like to say that was most important to me with being a single mom I wasn't single at the time. I was going through the process as a mother of 5 and working full-time and running a daycare full-time. So my time was very limited. So for her to allow me a 9:00 p.m. appointment was beyond huge in my world. My kids were asleep. It was after hours for my work. It was something that I could do without being noticed I was gone, I guess, at home. So it was important for me to have the right scheduling ability. So.
Okay. And experience is your personal journey of it?
Yeah, my personal journey, like I said, you don't recognize it. I lived many years without recognizing it, and you take it, I guess is the best way to put it. You just take it. We would go to parties. I would be on a driveway in the car with my kids, and he would give some reason that we couldn't go in. There was always a reason you can't go and be friends or be in society or a social situation. It was always segregation from family and friends. And another great example of my personal abuse, or what I call abuse, is just we would fight about temperature or something silly like that, and he would set the temperature to what his liking was, and he would take the thermostat off the wall and put me in my place. It's those kinds of it was subtle in my world. It wasn't a bruise on my arm. It wasn't a bruise anywhere in physical, but it was always that I'm in control manipulation for me.
So, can you describe who you were at that time? Because what did you believe about yourself?
I was lost. I was a mom of 5. I was his wife. That's who I was. I was not me. I was Mrs. Johnson. He would always crack that funny. You are Mrs. Johnson. And it's like, no, I'm Stacy, but right now I know that, but back then I did not.
What else do you
I was
know
Mrs.
about
Johnson. Period. What else do I know? Ask again, Sadie.
What else do you know about yourself? Who are you today?
Oh, today I'm evolving still. I'm going through the same process now with my kids because they have all started to become adults and they have learned behaviors. So it's very difficult right now. So I'm going through the next phase. Yeah, so sadly, it's a bummer because I thought it would be different, but they are learning behaviors from past and they're reliving it. So it's kind of sad. I'm trying to change it, but
they're adults and they are seeking their own help, but they're not realizing they're carrying on the cycle. And they're doing it to me, and I'm scared for my kids, future friends, spouses, whatever they choose. I'm scared for them someday already, because they're doing it to me.
I'm really sorry to hear that.
Yeah, me too. Thank you.
It's as you exude quite a bit of confidence, and the way that you're put together, you look like you've discovered some cool things about yourself in this process. And I'd like to hear you tell me who you are.
That's where I'm learning right now still, as I'm segregating myself, or not segregating, separating from the issues right now. I'm trying to figure out that I still deserve my life, and I deserve to move forward. And I think I'm learning that my adult kids need to be separated from me. So I'm learning how to cut the ties, cut the umbilical cord, as they always say. As adults, or as is your children, I guess, any mom wants to help them forever, I guess, but there comes a time right now in our situation that I do need to do that. And so I'm finding ways of de-stressing, detoxing, separating my oldest right now. I've separated him out of my life for the moment. So I'm not talking to him at the moment, so that's kind of sad. I'm hoping the phase will go through and they will grow up and turn around and come back and see what has been done over the years and how I've gotten them through it as well. But for me personally, trying to find hobbies and things that I enjoy, kind of focused on work a lot at the moment, but working out and motorcycling and activities that I find passion in. So
I know that survivors have two different personas, really. I mean, you're a flight attendant, so you're in front of people all the time, having your happy-go-lucky attitude, and you know, jet setting around the world. People think, and you know, how can you describe what that was like when you were going through your abuse with your ex, and you had that persona being on a plane, and then you have your persona being
right? It's conditioning, it's training. Ironically enough, I've had an experience recently that I can talk about with this kind of the same idea you put on the face. April 13th, I had a prep for an evacuation. So my life flashed before my eyes. My kids, I'm like, okay, tell them I forgive them, you know. Lots of stuff was going on in my head. And at that moment, I wrote one email, a mass email for one person to spread for my whole family and friends. And then I had to get back to the face, you know, the work face. And so it was pretty eye-opening, I guess. So you have the face, you have the work face, you have the strong, and I guess that answers your question too, is that that's my job. I have to look put together, I have to look strong, I have to carry that, and I have to give that perception to my passengers. And so it's conditioning and training, I think. So, I don't know.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, the experience was eye-opening for sure. Never in 30 years has that happened, so it was... We were yelling our commands and everything, and it was very interesting to go through that. It makes you stronger here, I guess, you know. It makes this kind of stuff doable. Because I don't want to lose the opportunities now, I guess, to try and change everything, make it better.
What would you tell other people that are living through what Gateway did for you and what the Gateway could do for them?
Never to be afraid to ask for help. I know I've said that 1,000 times. That it's okay to admit you're a victim, that it's okay to say you're weak at the moment, it's okay to cry, it's okay to it's okay to get help. That's what you are here for, Gateway, and that's why you exist. Sadly, we need it, you know. I don't know.
That was good. That was good. Not as a survivor now, but your part in giving back and volunteering for Gateway. How are you doing that, and what is that meaning to you now?
Yeah. For the giving back is huge in my world, because I know at the time I couldn't pay for my counseling, and you guys all said, or my counselor said that it was all good. You're going to have a day, and you know, and you can pay whatever, and when you can. And then I started thinking, and that was my motto, is when I can, I will. And so one counseling session, she knew I was always working out for my stress relief, and she said, since you ride, do you want to run a half marathon? And I said, well, never thought about it. I'm not a runner. She goes, well, if you run, you're a runner. So I chose to do the half marathons for you all in Gateway and raise funds. And so I would go to work and raise funds for my pilots and my flight attendants. And I was able to raise a lot of money, and I've done about 2 or 3, I can't remember now, three half marathons for Gateway. And I've done interviews. I spoke at a high school for a coach who had a football team, who needed that information, and that was giving back to me in a way. It was huge that night. It felt amazing to have 3 young men come up to me who are huge and give me a hug and say, I'm giving this number to my mom. You know, these kinds of things happened. It was amazing, and it brought tears to my eyes. It still does when I think about it, because the coach was just what a great coach, you know, to bring the personal side of these kids who need help. It was in a different neighborhood, you know, a little more poverty, a little more, not even poverty, I'm not going to say that, just multicultural, I guess is a good way to put it. And it seems that was a very helpful evening for many of those young men, and he was doing a whole program, but to be involved with Gateway with that was really special. Personal interviews that I've done on my passions of motorcycling, things like that. I enjoyed that one a lot. It was a special day for me to spend with you in the sunlight, and we had a nice conversation, and it was a good interview, and it was just something to share that you can not only survive, but you can go further than survive. You can have passions and enjoy life again and move forward. That there's happily ever after if you allow it.
So when you're doing all of these engagement, one thing that you want to make sure that everybody in your audience understands about you and about Gateway or domestic violence. It's the one thing.
That it's ever evolving. It's never done, I guess. Because here I am, and I'm still talking about my children going through the process, and I'm 10 years into this, 10 years. I'm like, wow. And here I am, still evolving and still dealing with the hauntings and the thoughts and the negatives. I mean, there's always going to be that. It's haunting. And as much as you want to say it's on the back shelf, it's just there. It's a part of you. And so to have Gateway and to be a part of it, I guess it reminds me that I'm still a survivor. I'm moving forward, even though it sometimes feels like I'm going a step backwards. I feel by being here and involved in helping someone else maybe, or talking about it, or letting it known that you can talk about it, that you're moving forward even though it doesn't feel like it sometimes. So.
Excellent. Do you have any other questions?
Struggle, and I think I hear this a lot of times, like I imagine healing will come when I've done these 5 steps, and it just moves on its own timeline, and it's frustrating. And so could you give a word of encouragement about staying true and keep showing up, or I don't know, like what is it that keeps you pursuing healing?
You are correct on, like even in counseling, she would profile. So I knew exactly what the personality was, the profile of the abuser, the batterer. She could tell me things that I can look for, but it was always, like you're saying, on the same time, or your own timeline. Everything happens when it's meant to happen. Everything, okay, let's say you're going through divorce in the courts and child support, or whatever. Timeline, it happens when it's supposed to. And same thing with this. I mean, she can give you all the tools, but until it happens at your house, until you're ready to jump, until you have the tools though, and that's what Gateway does. It gives you those tools so that you are, when it happens, when you're ready. I mean, I can give you the exact moment. I woke up one morning and I said, today is the day, I'm done. And most probably can say that. I'm assuming. That was just my experience, but it happens when it's supposed to. I never push anything. I just know the timing had to fall into place. I had to get my ducks in a row. I had to get, I had the worrisome things as many moms of abuse do. They have childcare issues. They have the, how do I do this alone? And how am I going to afford it? How am I going to, with my career, I had to be out of town. It was pretty darn near impossible, for childcare to, everything falls into place when it was supposed to. And then my daycare running, I had deals with my parents. They would take my twins on the weekends for overnights when I had their kids before and after school. it was a village. It takes a village, and if you have that village, it's a team effort with Gateway's Village, I guess. So it helped. It was my way of surviving through that.
Thank you.
You're doing
no,
good.
it's fine. I'm good.
Is there anything else that
Still the interviews.
like what? I mean, personally, just on knowing Gateway's here.
I wish I could come back more for counseling.
You can.
I know. I guess I guess there I am saying my own advice, right? Ask for help.
Yes, you can.
Because it is evolving. So.
There's never a time like, oh, you've used up your time.
Right.
If you need to come back, I was going to tell you that after this.
Yeah.
No,
I do
you need
remember
to come back, Stacey.
my counselor saying, she said, because I looked at her one day at the time, and I go, we really don't have much else to talk about. We're good, I got all my tools, and I don't know what else really to say. But that was back then. So here I am 10 years later, and the kids are grown, and the kids are becoming adults, and so yeah.
You can come back.
I might have to. Ironically enough, here I am.
That's why we're here.
Yeah.
So you fill in the blanks.
Closer to her a minute ago, but can you repeat after me and then finish the sentence? Thank you, Gateway, for...
Thank you, Gateway, for giving me the tools, the knowledge that I'm worthy. Truly.
And then thank you, donors, for...
Thank you, donors, for allowing me to get the counseling I needed when I needed it. And now it's my turn to pay back.
One thing with Stacey is that we did this, what she was referring to is we did this, Channel 8 Aurora did this.
Here we don't exist.
All right, we're
Just
ready.
me. Okay, so what I want you to start with is saying your name and spell it, please.
Oh,
and then
spell my first name.
First and last. And then, or if you don't want to use your last name, you don't have to.
Tamika's fine.
Okay,
If
so
that's
just
okay.
use your first name.
Okay.
Sometimes our staff doesn't want to have
That's
that
fine.
out there.
Okay.
So just use your first name, spell that, and then say who you are here, what you do here, your title. So go ahead.
Yeah, if I'm just going back and forth with the last name right now. That's what I'm playing in my head. It's not a big deal if we.
It's your
do
call.
that. Okay.
It doesn't matter.
It's just
It
funny
really
because
doesn't
my last
matter.
name is Speller.
We just
I know. Her last name is Speller.
That's funny.
So
We just
that's
like to
what I'm
see a
like.
name. I think people
Oh.
want to
Yeah, it could be Tamika, non-residential program
Yeah.
director. That's fine.
Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah. All right.
So
We're
go
going now? No.
You go.
And I'm just saying hi. Hi.
You
I'm
say Tamika.
Okay. Just Tamika. I'm not saying hi. I'm not introducing
They're not.
myself.
This won't even be in the video. This is just so they know what to put in the byline
Okay.
underneath for you.
Tamika.
How do you spell that?
Tomeka.
And what do you do here at Gateway?
I am the non-residential program director.
And how long have you been with Gateway?
I've been with Gateway going on 3 years now.
Okay. Did you have any previous involvement with Gateway?
I did years ago. I think approximately 19, 20 years ago, I volunteered for a short period of time.
Okay. Why did you want to be involved with Gateway?
Just as in employment-wise, or
Just
what drew me to
yes,
Gateway?
what drew you to this?
Oh, well, absolutely. I have personal experience just, in DV. And so from my personal story, but just drawn to working with people, working with families, working with women who've experienced, Linda's laugh just...
I'll tell you that too. It's like,
I'm perfect because
Okay.
I don't know.
No, it's good. Okay. Start how far over? What drew me to Gateway?
Yeah.
That's
perfect.
Yeah,
What
okay.
drew you to Gateway?
So, I got involved with working with Gateway through my personal experience with domestic violence growing up. And so had a heart for wanting to work with families who go through that type of trauma.
Okay.
That's it in a nutshell. I don't know how
That's good. That's
deep
really good.
you guys want me to go.
No,
into
that
it.
was
Okay.
good. What meant to you?
Oh, it's meant a lot. It's something that I'm passionate about, and not to sound, cliche, but I'm passionate about working with victims, particularly, and just helping them get to another place, helping them work through their process. And so it's been meaningful to me to be able to be a part of that little piece of someone's life.
Okay. And What meant? Because
Yeah, it's good.
I need to remind people that in the beginning, if I ask you a
So being involved with Gateway has meant something very personal and passionate for me. Just being a part of like a little piece of helping somebody get to their next stage of healing, or just being a part of being able to plant seed, whether it be in an adult's life or in a kiddo's life, and just being a part of that. It's such an honor, and it comes from a very passionate place for me.
Do you have any something that sticks out?
Personal. Okay. I don't have any special memory.
If you don't, you don't, and
I
we'll
know.
just move on.
I do not.
If it helps.
Okay.
I told her she can't be barking.
She's gonna bark at everybody.
Here, let's about like what the importance.
Yeah,
That's
why
where we
does
were
this
at.
matter?
Why does this work matter?
Okay. So this work is important, and it matters to me because it's, you know, when a person has experienced domestic violence or they are going through it, it's very hard to reach out, and it's very hard to seek and to find assistance and help and just an escape and answers. And so I think that Gateway is such a important part of this community because we have a lot of vulnerable people who live just within our range, and so Gateway can be a little hidden secret and a little escape for people to escape to, and just to try to work out their next steps. You know, their next steps, and to have that safe person to be able to come in and to not be judged, and to you know, not to have all of the answers immediately, but to just have somebody safe to be able to process and to talk about everything that they're going through, and to be able to just sit there and cry if they need to figure out their next steps. Oftentimes we have moms who are trying to be protective of their kiddos, and they don't have all the answers, and they don't have all the tools to protect themselves, let alone their kiddos. And so they're seeking answers, and they're seeking you know, next steps, a safe way to just figure out what's next. How can I protect myself, and how can I protect my family, and how can I get out of this situation, because they know it doesn't feel right, and they may be weighed down from having been in an abusive relationship for years. And so it's hard to see the light, and it's hard to get out. And so that's what we do here in my program, and the non-residential piece of it is we come alongside and just meet people where they are and help them figure out those next steps. And so that's why the work is important to me. No.
Donors. No, that's fine. You don't have to. You've said a lot.
Okay.
Good job. So you're filling the blanks.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
And I'm still looking at Janine.
you
Yep.
can
Yep.
actually you can try for repeat back and then finish the sentence.
Okay. That's a lot, kind of. Let's see. Thank you, Gateway, for doing your best to seek and to hire passionate people who care about this work and who care about our clients. And then just being present, showing up as professionals every day and advocates to help our clients in any way. I mean, Gateway is very unique in that we have several different programs and several different ways that clients may need help, whether it's through court advocacy or a safe escape for housing or counseling. And so thank you, Gateway, for working so diligently and hard to put those different programs in place for clients to just get the help where they need it.
And can you say thank you, donors?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Thank you, donors, for just understanding this work and opening up your hearts and opening up your financial. That's wrong. I'm editing in my head, and I'm trying not to do that.
You're doing fine. You're doing great. Don't overthink it.
You're doing
You're
great.
doing
I know.
great.
Just answer the question. Don't edit.
You're
I have
fine.
my job.
You're fine.
Okay. And I don't want to be just like, thank you for your money. But thank you for your money.
to say that. Financial donation.
Yes, yeah. Thank you for your support and your financial donations. That means a lot. Not everyone can come and volunteer their time. Obviously, not everyone has picked this as a profession, so thank you for your support financially.
I have one more question. Yes. But it's kind of intense, I guess. But can you describe to me who is the person that comes here? What are they when they come here?
As far as clients? Okay. The clients that come here don't necessarily have a look or there's not one description of the clients that come here. It is the person who has dealt with abuse in some form or fashion, whether it be spiritual abuse, financial abuse, isolation, economic abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse. So whatever type of abuse a person has experienced, if they have found the bridge or have been led to come to Gateway, that's who shows up. It's the person who is taking a step to reach out and to seek help and to seek assistance, and they may be on their last leg. They may be just at a rock bottom, and she, he, or even our younger people could, I'm thinking way too much, guys. I'm trying not to be.
Exactly
So
what
far,
I needed.
doing amazing.
Yeah, that was what I needed.
So domestic violence does not have, domestic violence can affect anyone, any socioeconomic background, any race, any gender. And so it's the person who's been abused. It's the person who's been abused and they have found a way, a bridge to us, and that's who shows up on our door.
And what do you do?
We meet them where they are. We meet them exactly where they are. In the non-residential program, a person could be in any state of their relationship. They could have just left the relationship. They could have, they could be considering leaving, and they could be already out of the relationship. So we meet clients where they are and support them in their process, and whatever decisions they need to make, we just help them to get to safety and to get to healthier ground.
Love it. Thank you.
Okay.